Chapter 451 Sword Masters all over the street. Hello everyone. Welcome to watch this issue of French Circle Weekly. I am Red Bubble. I am Green Fruit. The familiar opening line let people know that the latest French Circle Weekly is about to start again. Because of the exclusive news, that is, the specific information related to the Magic Land. This program stands out from other programs. Many people even regard this program as a must-have for their entertainment. There are also barrages. Finally here. Do you know how long I've been waiting? First, the barrages are so many that they can cover people's faces. Every time an episode is released, the number of online viewers can easily exceed 100,000. And because some of the information is very important, few gamers dare to say that they have not watched this show. First, let me preview the general content of this episode, including the subsequent progress of Expedition of the Great Rift, as well as a brief summary of the main characters of some novice countries, and interesting things that happened in the Magic Land. First is Expedition to the Great Rift. I believe many undead have already discovered that the attack speed of the abyssal disasters is slowing down, and they are not strong enough. Based on the plot we know now, we can guess that the main task of this version is not to completely eliminate the abyssal disasters in the Great Rift, nor to defeat them, but to prevent them from invading the continent. I know there will definitely be comments asking, what is happening in the Kingdom of Rand? Comment, what is happening in the Kingdom of Rand? Barrage, Rand Kingdom. Barrage, King Rand. Dense Barrage. Rand Kingdom is an exception. In fact, according to the data we have investigated, it is already very difficult for most of the countries where the undead live to resist the invasion of the Abyss. At present, 6 countries have been conquered by the Abyss, and most of the remaining countries are struggling to support themselves. Only a small number of them can gain the upper hand in the confrontation. Yes, the reason why the situation of the Rand Kingdom exists can also be said to be inseparable from Linda. In the development of the plot of other kingdoms, the old nobles are hostile forces that cannot communicate. Most of the undead can only choose to join the new nobles, or choose to join the mutants. But the Rand Kingdom has made the old nobles the main force because of Linda. It is also the only kingdom dominated by the old nobles. Lind is an official growth NPC, and we will continue to introduce him in detail later. Next, let's talk about the speculation of the plot development. Since the Expedition of the Great Rift, the Abyss disaster is getting weaker and weaker. Of course, it has something to do with the fact that our undead are getting stronger and stronger. It is very likely that there will be a round of withdrawal. We have 2 speculations about the subsequent development. One is that the Abyss will withdraw, and we can end this version and enter a new version. The second situation is that the Abyss chooses not to withdraw, and we must continue to consume, which means that Lin's handling method is correct. But we don't think the second situation will occur. Unless the level cap is opened, the undead will not be able to repel the Abyss. Barrage, bird food. After talking about the situation of the 3 continents, let's turn our attention to the Demon Land. Linda won another battle and directly established a novice village for the undead to guide. I think many undead are not aware of this news. Simply put, as we guessed before, Linda is the NPC who will guide people to the Demon Land in the future. There are also some vague guesses about the future plot of the Demon Land. The Beastman area is the map we have initially explored. The map is very large, and there are countless strongmen. There are also many Beast King territories. At present, it can be seen that the Beast King territories can still fight for territory. Linda has successfully eliminated a powerful local Beast King force and established a cooperative relationship with another Beast King force that is close to humans. The barrage began to get lively again. Fuck. Loud is so awesome. Kid. Who do you think I am? The person standing in front of you is the only son of the official. The only Krypton thief. The only dealer of the Abyss set. Lind. The poster girl collector. The Lind you are talking about is the one who has more than a dozen passive emblems while other NPCs only have one. He sounds very weak. He is indeed very weak. I suggest you fight him 1v1. Killing him will reveal a lot of good equipment. If you miss this opportunity, you will never get another one. I admit that he may be very strong, but my Imperial Fine one-handed steel sword with a notch is not bad either. When will you take us to the new map? I think it's more appropriate to go directly to the Rand Kingdom. He will definitely contact the Rand Kingdom first. We have rebelled? Ha! And forced our king to surrender to the Rand Kingdom. But this stupid king has never heard of the Rand Kingdom, or even the Shilu continent. The show continued. And Red Bubble said, based on Lin's development in the Magic Land, we can preview the version. The next version will have many features open, such as the title system. And there is also a pet system. Green Fruit continued, now I just want to talk about the pet system. Is there anyone who can refuse to have a cat of their own? I am so envious now. If you want to know more about cats, you can click the link below to jump to our other programs. Click to jump, my cat thigh. Sit, and watch the dart worship money worshipping ninja cat quickly brush 2 rings strong. Barrage, 2 rings? Fuck. Isn't that the boss that I am stuck with now? I watched this episode. Everyone is immortal. Why can't I even beat your cat? It's normal that we can't compare. It's equivalent to the internal test version. And it's a pet in a brand new map. The equipment, they will also integrate several technologies. We can't buy it even if we have money in our village. As far as I know. There should be inflation in the Magic Land. It's normal that we can't afford it. Red Bubble continued to report. The impact of us undead on the world is permanent. I believe everyone has confirmed this many times. Here are some contributions from undead. Some people played the game as a love game. And some people completed the werewolf, and were wanted by NPCs. Here I also wish everyone to find more happiness in the Magic Land. At the end of the video are players' contributions, all of which are wonderful clips. Lin finished watching the video. He is a loyal audience of the program. If he wants to get key information, he must always pay attention to the situation of the undead. The current situation is actually not beyond his expectations. The undead forces without him are still in a weak position. The undead are of course very powerful against the indigenous humans. But humans have never been considered enemies. Disasters, gods, etc. are the enemies of the game set from the beginning, and are also the main theme of the game. Without his help, the undead had developed very fast. But it was impossible for them to surpass the level and defeat the Abyss King. He was more concerned about the version update mentioned by the undead. Unlike the undead, who treated this world as a game, Lin knew very well that this world was absolutely real. And he had seen the helplessness of the official several times. So there was no such thing as for the gaming experience, and other situations where help had to be given. If the undead couldn't do it, the official had no way to do it, and could only rely on the undead to resist. There is a high probability that there will be no update. There are so many undead people, and it has not been long since the last level limit was broken. The official will definitely not be able to update it for the second time in a short period of time. Lin can make this guess because of the Beast Master. The Beast Master who follows him every day divides his power, and becomes the power of the undead. The more he divides, the weaker he becomes. However, as long as the Beast Master takes back his power, he can make a fortune. Now 3,000 undead people are nothing. But it is hard to say in the future. So Lin is talking to the Daughter of the Night, trying to drag her down. The Daughter of the Night is a little weak, but she is still a god. As long as there are enough people who believe in her, her power can be improved. However, the Lady of Night was not very enthusiastic and had no enthusiasm, which made Lin very unhappy. He thought that he could find time to open the world boss again. Of course, this time, it would not only be the undead who would kill the Lady of Night. Let Solaris close the door and release you are. From the territory of the King of Corruption, a team of fully armed beastmen set out for a place called Undead Reception Novice Village, which had a very strange name. The round-faced Princess Magdalena protested against this name several times. She thought it should be used. Desert Base, or the last light of humanity, and other names with strong symbolic meanings can give people strength from the names. She also said that she did not discriminate against the undead, and was willing to sacrifice herself for the last fire of mankind. Even if the undead, who burned to ashes, were worthy of respect, it would not matter if they changed the name to the Undead City. However, all her proposals were vetoed by Lin. Even if her aunt was the King of Corruption, Lin did not forget that his real enemy was official, then the disaster and those gods with abnormal brains. And now we have to add the thing sealed under the City of Misty Rain. Grabbing the undead should always be the first priority. Everything else can be postponed. So the undead are not important. The desert, the last light of mankind, etc. are not important at all. And the novice village is the most important. Simple and direct. Clear at a glance. Gives people a feeling that you can tell this is official at a glance. The strong sense of separation will indeed make people feel worse when playing. But what does that have to do with Lind? He only needs to consider how to absorb the undead when the Magic Land is open in the future. Let the undead spontaneously head to the undead novice village as soon as possible, and it will be considered a success. The Beastman team stayed in the territory of the Corruption King for a long time. But the territory of the Corruption King was very peaceful. The beasts were lazy, and most of them were not strong. So they decided to go to the undead novice village that destroyed the Lionheart Castle and fight for a way out with their claws. Leaving the Red Swamp, the bloody but peaceful place was left behind. The road ahead was covered with yellow sand, connected to the dusk of the sky, like a huge gradient yellow cloth tied together, leaving only a reluctant blue when it transitioned to the top of the head. There was no vegetation in sight on the road ahead. This was an abandoned desert area. No trees, wildflowers, or anything else could grow here. It was not just water that was lacking. Look up at the sky. It looks like a plum. The second Beastman wore a set of bone armor and squinted at the sky. The hot desert sun made his mouth sour. We'll be there soon. The one who spoke was the Beastman boss, who was carrying a broadsword, the absolute core of the Beastman team, and also admired by everyone else, because the Beastman boss was a swordsman. The Sword Saint, relying on his own courage, challenges powerful enemies, raises his sword towards death again and again, and then wins in countless deaths, never running away. It can be said that with the title of Sword Saint, one has the qualification to step into the backbone of the Beastmen. The Beastmen, known for their ferocity and bravery, have great respect for the strong. When they meet the Sword Saint, even the Beast King will look at him differently. The scorching sun burned the road ahead. Finally, they crossed the desert and came to a mountain range. The road ahead was no longer flat. The mountains were stacked, and there was another mountain after crossing one. The dazzling and hot sunlight suddenly fled far away here. It seemed that the sunlight did not want to have too much contact with the mountains. So the canyons and mountains became extremely cold. The Beastmen team seemed to have gone from the unbearable hot summer to the freezing cold winter in an instant. After passing through this area again, the undulating mountain road began to become straight, and a huge city-state under construction appeared in front of them. It seemed that the original goal of the construction was to surpass the mountains. The low hills seemed to be shorter than the city walls. How much manpower and strength are needed to build a huge city comparable to a mountain? This place will not be worse than other Beast King territories in the future. The Beastman boss made a serious judgment. They thought they came to the right place. The road to that huge city-state was like a pilgrimage. Soon they knew how such a magnificent building appeared. It was a human wizard. They used magic to transport it. Wait, that seems to be a sword master? The Beastman boss suddenly realized something was wrong. As a sword master, he was sensitive to people with the same aura. He could sense that the figure in front of him, who was using magic to transport the boulder, was the sword master. Being able to sense the other party's title was like a beast's instinct. But most beastmen could not see everyone's title and profession at a glance. The Beastman boss could feel his own sword master title humming, and the beast power in his blood was surging like thunder. A human mage actually had the title of sword master. But that strong aura could definitely not be fake. Just like seeing a lit candle in the dark. The Beastman boss thought he couldn't be wrong. Why would a powerful and proud swordsman move a huge rock? Before he could answer his question, the candlelight in his senses appeared again, and more and more. He looked over and saw a group of cheerful and playful humans trotting by. They were not strong, but every one of them was a swordsman. The Beastman boss's thoughts were like the dust flying when he passed through the desert, and like the cold wind dancing in the canyon. Why are there sword masters everywhere? The sword masters that he was proud of were everywhere here. Put away your temper. Be honest. And don't cause trouble. The Beastman leader warned his brothers seriously. Just like the name of the huge city-state in front of him. The Undead Reception Novice Village. This place is very mysterious and terrifying. It is probably difficult to make a name for yourself here. Chapter 452 version N. Updating. An ancient ruin somewhere. The king of Black Phosphorus. The voice came again. The mountain range shook, and the huge but very old cage raised its head, and the scales that had completely lost their vitality like charcoal stood up. Its body was too old and heavy, and it would take a long time to make its neck flexible again. We should continue to cooperate, just like we did before. The barriers of those continents are very weak. We can go there and explore more possibilities, instead of wandering here meaninglessly. Why do you think I'm watching you here? A few pieces of broken charcoal scales fell from the old black dragon's body. After colliding with the stone, they began to smoke and black flames rolled. When they landed, they completely turned into a cluster of flames. The flames did not go out, and a small piece of rotten scales could provide unlimited energy, allowing the burning to continue. In the flickering firelight, something was approaching in the darkness. Balance, the voice said, and his feet just stopped at the edge of the burning scales, and only a pair of pale and smooth feet were illuminated by the firelight. It's because I trust others so easily. The old black dragon blew smoke from its nostrils. The biggest mistake I made in my life is to trust others so easily. It mentioned trust with hatred. If I didn't trust others so easily, I wouldn't be here with you. And now you want to lie to me again. I'm tired of staying in this place. I advise you not to come here every day. Otherwise I will slap you to death. Forgive me for doing this. King of Black Phosphorus. The figure was not threatened by the old black dragon. He continued, our previous cooperation has always been smooth. Fuck you. The old black dragon couldn't help but curse. Good cooperation means I always suffer losses? Where are the benefits? Where are my benefits? The more it thought about it, the angrier it got. Suddenly, it raised its claws and slapped the figure hiding in the darkness to death. It feels much better. I told you not to hang around here. The old black dragon sneered at the abyss. Every day, it spreads that the abyss is scary, and the unknown is scary. Bullshit. The more others know about me, the more afraid they will be of me. King of Black Phosphorus. The voice was prolonged. But the other party did not dare to show up again. Sleep. The old black dragon curled his head under his wings, and his body completely merged into the mountains. His guarding work had to continue. But after a while, a naked man slowly appeared. It was too boring to stay here. He wanted to go out and find some fun. The existence in the darkness quietly watched the condensed figure of the old black dragon leave, and finally hid in the darkness. Since the old black dragon was determined to stop him, he could only wait here obediently. However, the abyss was not without other methods. The most unfortunate thing was that the Beast King level thug that was targeted before was dead. Otherwise he could continue to trade with the old black dragon. Now, he could only hope that the person who replaced the Lionheart King could help him. But the other party had not replied for a long time. At the port of Stone Beast Fort, a team that looked a little down and out left the ship. It was very strange. The leader was a young man with colorful hair. He was wearing a light noble robe, which was decorated with strange gem badges and beautiful bird feathers. The robe was woven with brooms, hats, rabbits and frogs with strange gold threads. Your Highness, we should not stay here for long. Among the guards following the handsome young man, a dark-skinned bald man was looking at the surrounding environment with cautious eyes. I heard that humans are not safe in the land of beasts. His sunken eyes looked at every beastman. I don't know if it was an illusion, but he always felt that the beastmen didn't seem to be ready to pounce on him to rob or kill. But very scared? Strange. Why are the beastmen afraid of humans? Is there anywhere else we can go? The handsome young man asked, his fingers dancing, his fingertips pulling the silk thread to make a pleasant music. It seems not at the moment. Your believers have overturned your faith. The dark man said, those evil people want to use your head to sacrifice to those evil gods. You should run to a place where they don't know you at all. So we are here. The handsome young man was still very relaxed. He looked at the beastmen around him and said, I feel that their eyes are very clear. They should be easy to deceive. I mean they will like my story. Right? Your Highness, I think you better not do this. Our strength is very weak. I only have 3 rings. Stories can move people. The handsome boy shook his head. You have to believe in the purest power. The reason why your power is weakened now is because you no longer have a beautiful heart. The magic ring has been broken. Your Highness, no one in this world will be optimistic or have a beautiful heart. The dark man said, no, you don't understand. The charm of language is irreplaceable. The handsome young man shook his head. Then he looked at a beastman with horns passing by. His eyes lit up, and he quickly approached. What's your mother's last name? Instig Continent is called one of the 3 novice village continents by the undead. The Kingdom of Trees, established by the new nobles who defeated the old nobles, is thriving. The undead who came and went formed a coalition to resist the great rift of the abyss. But the undead were not the backbone of this country. The new nobles offered their loyalty to the goddess of life and gained powerful power. They could transform into a powerful race of life to fight. And they could also cultivate big trees to fight for them. The defense line was unbreakable from the beginning. The power of the abyss is weakening. The Druid Queen stood on the top of the tree canopy. The branches swayed with the wind, and her body also rose and fell with the branches. Looking ahead, the lush sea of trees made a rustling sound of leaves flapping in the wind. In her hand was a slender ivory staff, the top of which was decorated with lightning, wild bears and other strange iron pieces. And when the wind blew, the iron pieces collided with each other and made a rustling sound. The abyss could only resist. She was already a hero-level strongman, the most powerful person in this country. But she still couldn't resist the enemy of the abyss. But her keen sense of life allowed her to discover details that others could not. Closing her eyes, the Druid Queen let her consciousness leave her body and drift around with her body as the center. The closest place was a large number of living beings. They were the sea of trees under her feet. And they were also the key to the Druid Queen's ability to suppress the undead. This terrifying team lived around the Tree of Life. She thought she should be the first person to learn to use the undead. She let the undead work for her. And then, they cultivated tree warriors comparable to great knights. And there were a large number of them. The consciousness continued to spread further away. The big crack was not far from here. She felt her consciousness was wrapped in a dull feeling, as if she had jumped into a scorching fire wave and was roasted red. Then, the Druid Queen felt a light, which was like a flash of a shooting star at night, gently sweeping across her consciousness. Her emotions suddenly began to surge uncontrollably. That light tried to tell her to protect the undead, and with an attitude that could not be questioned. "I'm doing that." When she responded, the light disappeared, as if it had never appeared in her consciousness. Continue to give the undead new jobs so that they can continue to grow. The faster the better. Just like the instinct remained in the depths of the Druid Queen's soul. She was completely unaware, and her consciousness continued to spread. She began to feel more chaotic things. Not the abyss. She had already entered the range of the abyss crack. It's the undead. They are so chaotic and colorful. When you use your consciousness to sense them, you can find their brilliance. The Druid Queen was surprised why she gave the undead a brilliant evaluation. Although she was using the undead, she never liked this group of people. They never needed a reason to do bad things. If they were not strong enough to suppress them, they might have developed in another direction. The big crack was already a sea of fire at this time. The jumping light was stirring the Druid Queen's heart. The undead were always fighting. They loved to fight. But the Druid Queen had a feeling that the war was about to end. She opened her eyes. It was still the green sea of trees, and the clattering sound of the iron sheet on the top of the staff made her heart calm. There is a being trying to tell me the direction of the world's development. She didn't know whether she should believe it. But if it is true as she felt, the Abyss army of the Great Rift is about to withdraw. Maybe it is a good thing. In the Black Swamp Kingdom, the undead, led by Wenruiwen, finally killed their way into the depths of the Great Rift. The undead of the Land Kingdom, the Black Swamp Kingdom, and the Sea Caps Kingdom in the south of the Black Swamp Kingdom. The undead of the three kingdoms gathered together to attack a large rift, perfectly explaining what it means to have too many wolves and too little meat. Nothing can stop the undead's enthusiasm for attacking the large rift. The heart of disaster, which had been rapidly reduced in price due to inflation, has now gradually returned to its proper price as the number of undead has increased, and the price has stabilized. Equipment recycling and free trading are only seen on the front battlefield of the Black Swamp Kingdom. The undead in other areas live too hard. Brothers, this is the last time. Today, the undead gathered here. Have the official updates always been so inconsistent? An undead complained. The last update was very abrupt. And this offline update was also very abrupt. The worst thing is that the official reason given was that the Abyss decided to withdraw its troops. So expedition to the Great Rift was announced to end early, and it will be forced offline as usual, with an update time of 24 hours. At the last moment, the undead began to race against time. Not only the Black Swamp Kingdom, but the undead in other novice kingdoms also reacted in a similar way. If they didn't rush to take action, they would not be able to spawn again. If they didn't know, it would be fine. But the Land Kingdom really solved an Abyss King, so there was no reason why they couldn't do the same. Everyone started to spend like crazy, spending all their resources. Some undead were stingy and unwilling to spend money. You haven't experienced the update, and you don't understand the characteristics of this game. I dare say that it will take several years after we go online. An experienced undead explained. It's like if we leave this world will really continue to run. If you don't believe it, you can go to the official website to find videos. Many researchers have investigated and found that it can really make up for the history that disappeared when the undead were updated. The worst thing is the things we have. Let's not talk about the currency system update. Those disaster hearts and magic potions may lose their effectiveness directly. Weapons, houses, and livestock may also rust, collapse, and starve to death over time. It's not that bad, right? Some immortal said. If it's that bad, then I won't play it. But then I thought about it. There is only one game in the world that can be played in dreams after falling asleep. Forget it. Just treat it as a game that pays attention to details. It's not unplayable. We are the Knights of God, here to save the world. We appear when we are needed, and disappear when we are not needed. Isn't it reasonable? Okay. Start killing. The Kingdom of Rand. Miss Dorothy was frantically calculating her accounts, even though it was already late at night. Crazy. 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 She wrote furiously. The undead suddenly engaged in retaliatory consumption, and the market she had built with great difficulty collapsed. At this moment, Dorothy finally understood what Lin meant at the time. He's right. The undead are the main body. The monetary systems of ordinary people and undead should be separated. Dorothy was even glad that Queen Rania had always insisted on implementing two policies according to Lin's requirements. Otherwise, it would not be impossible for the entire country to be bought by the undead. She took off her glasses, rubbed her eyes. I thought of going outside to get some fresh air and rest. Your Majesty? Dorothy looked at the figure of Goliath, and she didn't expect that he hadn't rested at night. Renija looked into the distance, which was the direction of the Black Swamp Kingdom. As time went by, the Crystal Defense Tower and the reconnaissance guard slowly moved in, and the two countries almost merged into one. What do you think the Demon Land is like? Renija suddenly asked. Are you thinking about the Duke? Dorothy was very reluctant to address Lind as a respectful person, but she had to admit that the other party had made great achievements in a very short period of time, including what she had now. Thanks to Lind, fellow traveler. Renija seemed to answer, but also seemed not to answer. She knew very well that the rabbit-toothed witch had always been by the side of the crystal wizard, studying hard with him. And one day when Lin needed her, the rabbit-toothed witch would stand up. Even Tioni was taken away directly. Only she would be the queen trapped on the golden throne. Power is also a chain. She began to feel it. The Duke thinks you are a queen worthy of loyalty, and you have done very well. Dorothy comforted her. She was worried that the queen would suddenly abandon the kingdom and go to the Devil's Land in pursuit of some promise. Dorothy, you are a very qualified minister. Renija turned around. The nostalgia on her face disappeared, leaving only the decisiveness of a queen. You are right. I am a queen worthy of loyalty, she said in a powerful voice. We are going to fight. Sir Griffin. Dorothy was shocked. She knew exactly what the queen meant by fighting, and there would be no undead in this war, because this was what Linda had specifically told her. Undead came to this world with a mission. They had no loyalty at all, and the war between kingdoms required soldiers to remain absolutely loyal. So when the two countries went to war, they could only use their own soldiers. As for the undead, let them deal with the hostile undead. The kingdom of Sacaps? Dorothy asked. The arrival of a large number of undead also completely exposed the kingdom of Sacaps to the eyes of the kingdom of Rand, and the kingdom of the moon. We have already grasped their direction, Rania said. The entire Shilu continent can be included in the territory of the kingdom of Rand. She knew that Linda valued the undead, but was worried about the undead rebelling. What if there was only one queen in the entire continent? All the undead who appeared on this continent must be loyal to the only queen Rania Hedwin. Dorothy looked at Rania with burning eyes. The magnificent painting unfolded in front of her. She forced herself to take a deep breath and calmed her pounding heart after adjusting. It will be as you wish. So obedient? Lind looked at the update reminder on the official website, and then recalled his previous experience, and couldn't help scratching his head. Does it mean that I am now able to influence the official update trend? It seems that the official strength is not much stronger than the Abyss. The Great Rift Expedition. It's over. The reason for the end is that the Abyss Great Rift chose to withdraw. But the reason for the withdrawal was Lind. He was annoyed by the constant harassing text messages from the Abyss. So he had to switch to the second heartbeat and go online as the Abyss. The other party asked Lind to work for him and mentioned how to develop steadily. Lind casually said, Take back all the Abyss expeditionary forces you sent out. All the forces are dispersed. When can you break through the seal you mentioned? I didn't expect that the Abyss would believe it with just one sentence. And then withdraw their troops obediently. So obedient. I should have let him commit suicide. Lin suddenly felt a headache. This update came so unexpectedly. Official. It must be great. The big trouble has been solved. But I have lost the immortals. And it will be difficult to move in the future. At the same time, in the ancient ruins, a dark figure is accumulating strength. He is right. The consciousness of the King of Black Phosphorus has left. This is the best time to gather strength to escape. Chapter 453 Black Knight is online again. The undead are about to leave. And Lin's first thought is to wait for 10 days. He wants to see what direction it will eventually develop in. If it is the same as the last update, the undead will most likely disappear for a day or two and then reappear. But he knows very well in his heart that the possibility is very small. Because he has gradually grasped the characteristics of the official. No matter what kind of god or some strange consciousness. The goal of bringing the undead into this world is very clear from the beginning. To save this broken world. And all objects that may endanger the world will be defined as enemies. For example, the old nobles, who lost control of their bloodline power. There is also the Abyss that invaded the continent. However, the opponent's control over this world is very weak, and they have no experience in managing the undead. Which is why Linda can take advantage of every opportunity. The benefits he gained seem to be many. But in fact, he only reached the level of 4 to 5 rings. Which is nothing at all. So even if the opponent noticed Linda, he might not care much. Loss of control is another weakness that Linda found in the opponent. When a big threat, such as the invasion of the Abyss, occurs, the official will release the main quest and let the undead resist. But they can't come up with any methods and means to resist. Except for the undead following Lind. The undead in other areas all complain that there are too many game dung monsters, and the resources are stingy. From the perspective of game players, the experience is very poor. But if you regard this place as the real world, you will find that immortality is really nothing special. Evil gods emerge in an endless stream, and they always have the ability to resurrect from the dead. Not to mention that one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse is the undead knight. Although that immortality is completely different from the undead. It is normal that the undead without the halo of the protagonist cannot deal with those strong ones. Only Lin knows that the immortality of the undead is only one of its advantages. The mentality of playing with the world. The tricky operation. And the advantages of upgrade cannot be ignored. The official has the undead, but does not know how to use it. Which seems very dull. This makes Lin want to test the other party. If the world's security is endangered, the official will be eager to find the undead. So he can directly persuade them now. Abyss. What will happen if they invade again? Will the undead, who just went offline, come online immediately? But he just thought about it, and put it down. He must not do this because it will hurt others, and not benefit himself. Only he knows that every NPC is a living person. His strength is getting stronger and stronger. Although it is said that the greater the ability, the less responsibility, it is still necessary to maintain the basic bottom line of being a human being. Without the undead, the heroic spirits in the underground cemetery, the search for dragons to go to Tianqing Magic School, and the Mage Tower, Stone Beast Castle, and other places can only rely on myself. The undead disappeared for no reason. As the leader of the undead, I am also considered an undead in the eyes of others. If I stay here, I will probably be suspected of not having the ability to be immortal. Now, many people, including the King of Corruption, have not taken action against Lind because they think Lind is also an undead. As long as he is not dead, he will always be an undead. What a big loophole. So when the undead disappear, I'd better disappear with them. Identity doesn't matter. Anyway, I don't have any power to borrow. There are only Solaris and UR in the bee's sacrifice field. UR is an uncontrollable mad dog. Although the Corruption King seems to be very good and completely on the side of the humans in the demon land. And even Magdalena is working hard for the future of mankind. It is hard to say how the Corruption King is doing. And there has been no in-depth communication. It is not a bad thing to not have the undead around. For example, he can move more freely. Thinking back to the days when the undead were around him. He still liked the days when the undead charged into battle. But he could only settle for the second best. Perhaps he can rely on more flexible and covert actions to explore some detailed information about the demon land in advance. Such as if someone is blind and makes him unhappy, he can write it down in a small notebook and issue them the main task after the undead come online. Are all you undead crazy? The Beast Master ran to Lind with his legs. What's wrong? Lind asked casually. He was thinking about how to explain the disappearance of the undead, especially Magdalena. The undead reception novice village is something that Lind must hold in his hands, although he didn't spend much time on it. The name is very authentic. It is a name that the entire magic land, even the magic world, can't think of. If he gives it to Magdalena, wouldn't it help her become the main NPC of the new map? Self-sacrifice is not in Lind's plan. He prefers to repay a drop of water with a spring of water. The drop of water refers to himself, and the spring of water refers to others. The Beast Master said, everyone is frantically begging for cats. It's normal. Everyone is leaving. It's not known how long they will be gone this time, and it's not sure whether there will be inflation in the future. It's better to spend all the money quickly and exchange it for useful things, especially animal teeth, because without Lind's adjustment, the animal tooth currency market is very stable, which makes it easy for the undead to find loopholes to make a lot of money. When a group of people are not afraid of death and are lawless, it is really easy to make money. Normal? Yes. The undead will leave for a while. Lind thought about it, and simply felt too lazy to make up a story. The undead appeared mysteriously in the magic land, and then left mysteriously. Even if he knew about it, what would happen? Leaving. What does this have to do with spending money? Maybe they like it, Lind said. It was an impeccable answer. It was still too difficult to think about this question with his beast brain. The Beast Master decided to pretend that he had never asked. Then Lind found Solaris. Not for anything else. This beast girl is a bit stupid and easy to fool. Are there any brothers who want to meet offline tomorrow? He asked loudly. His team urgently needs to recruit some people. After the 24-hour update, the new version will be launched the day after tomorrow. There will definitely be new land reclamation. At that time, the legendary Stone Beast Castle and Fog Rain City will be opened. There is strength in numbers, and only by being one step ahead can you get good things. He could even imagine that more systems, more professions, weapons, props, precious materials, etc. would definitely be opened up at that time. This time, there were not enough people. If the undead from the Rand Kingdom could come in the new version, his business trip could continue. Those who are interested can come to chat privately. I'll treat you to a meal, Lauda shouted. With so many people, will one day be too tight? Some people were also worried. Lauda immediately advised, don't worry. I have a buddy whose family runs a hotel, and he can take care of food and accommodation. He also takes on large gatherings, team building, and weddings. He is familiar with it. When we meet together, we can also talk about the gameplay and experience. We are all friends, and the main thing is to have fun together. Many people chose to accept the invitation, while others did not like to gather with too many people. Those in the same city or province decided to have a small gathering and meet in person. Others were just plain lazy. I have to work overtime tomorrow. Damn. Then next time. I'm still preparing for the exam. Do postgraduate entrance exam candidates also play games? I haven't played it before, but I can draw cats, and it's updated today. If I don't spend my money quickly, it might be wasted when I come back. Some people can't help but be sentimental. Oh, I really don't know what this place will look like next time we come back. Seeing it with your own eyes and touching it with your own hands is completely different from sitting in front of a computer and looking at a monitor. I don't know if this time I leave, some NPCs will say goodbye forever. It's time to count down to log off. What do you think? If I force myself not to log off now, will I travel to another world with all my equipment? Damn. Why didn't I change my job to a skeleton? What a pity. I was thinking there was no logout button. Let's go! They waved to each other. It was just a day's absence. Nothing. Moonblade. Black Tortoise Shield. Bring me food later, Long Linjian said as he raised his hand to touch his head and took off his helmet. And the next moment his figure disappeared. Bring food again? Dad didn't even call me, Moonblade complained. And his figure disappeared. It doesn't matter. I'll bring it. Last time he called me. Black Tortoise Shield only finished half of his words. The entire undead reception novice village instantly lost the figure of the undead. At the same time, in the kingdom of Rand, Doryman is about to become a daily live broadcaster. The fans who watch her live broadcast have gradually changed from mostly male fans to half male and half female. This has to mention her gameplay. She is not very good at fighting, but she always smiles. Both NPCs and undead like her very much. She visits stores all day long. And slowly, she opened a small store herself. In addition to visiting the game guild, she also DIYs her own store and employs several NPCs. Because she has money to spend and the internet celebrity effect, many undead people come to patronize. So the store's birthday has always been good. We may be away for a while. Ding Dong Bu Guan Song still called the NPC in the store. You just need to continue to maintain the operation of this store. This time we will be away for a long time. So you just need to take good care of the store and get food and drink from the store. There are many people who give instructions to NPCs like Ding Dong Bu Guan Song. Everyone has guessed that they will definitely be away for a while for this update. I just don't know whether it will be a few months, a year, or even longer. And there are even worse situations. The undead is giving earnest advice to the beautiful female NPC in front of him. Although the Kingdom of Rand does not allow undead to marry locals. After all, undead can't even take off their pants. But there is no shortage of locals who want to live with undead. Although they can only be licked in the face and can't do anything, they can get a good life in peace. The locals who have experienced the hard times before know how to choose. Hey, my wife. The undead man had a deep reluctance in his eyes. He had enjoyed dating the female NPC before, but now he began to complain that the game was too real. He had only been away for 24 hours. But in the eyes of the NPC, it might have been several months or even a year. We are in pure love. Wife, remember to stay away from yellow-haired people. Yellow-haired? What is yellow-haired? The female NPC was puzzled. It's like Lind, with a head full of yellow hair. The undead wanted to cry, but had no tears. My dear, I'm leaving. Please don't cheat on me. Unlike the undead, who were looking forward to the new version, the pure love warriors will spend the most tormenting 24 hours. In the Kingdom of Rand, Rania was checking the map. Your Majesty, the undead disappeared. What? All the undead disappeared. The major cities sent news, including the front line of the Black Swamp Kingdom. The same situation was happening in the countries of Shilu Continent, Instant Continent, and Cerilin Continent. Some countries were always on guard against the undead. Now that the undead were gone, they could breathe a sigh of relief. However, some countries regard the undead as their main force, and even make the undead the main force of the country to go to war with other countries. This scene appeared on the battlefields of two countries in the Cerilin Continent. The two armies fought. The undead launched a charge, and then disappeared from the battlefield together, leaving only the generals of both sides standing there on horseback. The generals of both sides looked at each other from a distance. Each of them could see the ant-like figure of the other. Suddenly, the battle between two armies of tens of thousands of people turned into a one-on-one duel? In the Magic Land, the undead leave the novice village. Magdalena learned that all the undead had disappeared. So she took the initiative to look for Lind. But only the beast girl Solaris was waiting for her. Where is Lind? Magdalena asked. All the undead have left, Solaris answered. But it was a little vague. Left? Yes. It was some kind of guidance. But before leaving, he said that he would maintain magical contact. Solaris conveyed Lind's words in full. Is it because of something important? Magdalena could only think so. She needed the help of Linda and the undead. And from the name of the building, it can be seen that this place is called Undead Reception Novice Village, which means that there will be more and more undead in the future. But Magdalena thought of what her aunt said. You need undead to cooperate with Linda. But according to my investigation, the undead are not a monolithic group. Why don't you send people to other continents to pick up undead who are willing to be loyal to you? At that time, Magdalena was not willing to do this. She recognized the selfless dedication of the undead and admired Lind. But now Lind disappeared with the undead, forcing her to rethink what her aunt said. Maybe she could now recruit some undead to join her. Otherwise they would disappear with Lind at the critical moment, which would bring her a lot of trouble. At the same time, a team of 3 people and 1 cat left the undead recruitment novice village. Lind picked up his old black knight vest. He didn't want to wear it, but the undead forced him to wear it. But now it's just right for use. Tioni followed him wearing a hat, and the magic ring fragments turned into a necklace at Linda's request, and then covered it with a nun's scarf. It would be very tiring to control the magic ring fragments all the time. When no one was around, Linda would let her take a rest. But Tioni was very obedient. Don't you feel tired? Tired. But this is what you asked me to do. Tioni answered very straightforwardly. Why? Because I am your fiancé, and you are my fiancé. So I have to listen to you. Tioni answered as a matter of course. However, Linda knew that it was because Tioni did not have normal human emotions, and only acted according to what is right. The beast master squatting on Linda's shoulder could not help but roll his eyes. Sour. William looked forward. He was finally free under the protection of the undead. Its protection. William wanted to experience fighting against the strong before, but the undead always took the initiative to help him, so that he always lived under the active protection of the undead. Since coming to the demonic land, he has never fought again except when dealing with the soul-pecking villains. I can finally hone myself and improve my strength. Our destination this time is the Stone Beast Castle. Let's get some information first, Lynn said. If we want to leave, the port there is also suitable for us. In fact, he has a more suitable means of transportation. The underground tunnel worm. But the worm seems to be able to only travel between different continents, but cannot move to more detailed places. I don't know if it is because the demonic land has some restrictions. Lin's desire to go to Tianqing Magic School was no longer so strong. After all, he had obtained the legendary path potion formula. Finding someone to help him make potions became his primary goal. But the one who can make legendary potions must be a legendary wizard. It also requires a legendary heart of disaster, which is quite scarce. Even if the entire magic world is added together, there are not so many legendary wizards. If the legendary wizards are evaluated to be 5th ring or above, there will be even fewer. In the future, there will be a large number of undead who cannot be upgraded to the legendary level. Or will the authorities have some way to break this barrier? Such as a powerful enemy descending from the sky? Oh no! Time seems to be even more urgent. Let's search for news about dragons at the same time. It's also okay to go to the Tianqing Magic School to get potions above the legendary level. At this point, there is no need to be picky. He wants them all. William, you have to disguise yourself a little bit, Lynn said. The identity of the undead is also a good card for Lynn. Knowing that he can't be killed, no one will attack him. He raised his hand and scratched the beast master on his shoulder. What are you doing? The Lord of Beasts put his hands on his hips. Help William change his appearance temporarily. I know the Lord of Beasts can definitely do it, Linda said. He has gradually figured out the Lord of Beasts' personality. Perhaps because of his weak strength. The other party's personality is fully displayed in front of him. He looks fierce, but is weak inside. Afraid of death. And a little vain, and likes to hear flattery. The most important thing is to want the echo. Linda's pockets are full of echoes. No big deal. The Lord of Beasts' ears twitched. The next moment, William suddenly found that his mouth was protruding forward. He raised his hand and touched it. His face was full of white hair. In a blink of an eye, William had turned into a swordsman with a white wolf head. How is it? He asked. Not bad. Lynn nodded. He wanted to say that this face was much better than William's original face. No man could resist the charm of the white wolf swordsman. The beast master did not mention Tioni, because he could not transform Tioni. The fragments of the magic ring had a great impact. William didn't think there was anything wrong, because he didn't care about the change in his appearance. It was just a temporary change anyway. It was understandable for the convenience of action. Now they only had 3 people and a cat, so they must act cautiously. Oh! Linda's eyes lit up. Get ready to act. William? He looked ahead. It was a team walking in the desert. And they were not beastmen, but a human army. Wait a minute. Act cautiously? And we only had 3 people and a cat. Chapter 454 Underground Ghost. Now everyone hides their identities. Changing vests is not for doing bad things. Just like robbers robbing a bank. And buying stockings is definitely not for wearing on the legs. Only after covering the face can you do whatever you want. Lynn looked at the crowd in front of him. A little jealous. He had inquired about the Mechanicus before, and knew that some beastmen forces cooperated with the Mechanicus. Now the armor wrapped in the team in front is very sophisticated. much more exquisite than the ones worn by the beastmen before. The appearance of plate armor is like that of a tin can. But outside the armor, you can see the gears slowly turning. It looks like a strong knight has half the weight of precision gears. I don't know how it turns. Aren't you afraid of sand getting stuck in it? There is not much else in the wasteland. An occasional sandstorm can bury a person alive. How can a precision instrument still work after being buried in sand? William, sir, can't a cleaning magic be enough? Lynn turned his head and looked at William's dog head. Well said. Don't say it next time. Otherwise I will look stupid. I will write it down in your notebook. I will arrange you as a sparring partner after the undead come online. His eyes turned to the team in front again. He has been envious of the knowledge of the Mechanicus for a long time. Due to the limitation of talent, few NPCs can match the achievements of the undead. But if there is help from external forces, maybe they can barely keep up with the pace. Not to mention restricting the actions of the undead. At least they can be used as objects of communication and chat, and issue some tasks. It was too difficult to act alone. William, the most talented man under him, had now become a unit of combat power. Just like he had no one to use after the undead disappeared. They don't look like humans, William said again. Although those things had human heads, William found that they didn't have complete bodies, and they might not even be considered living things. They were wearing plate armor of various colors, and precise gears were dotted on the armor like ancient inscriptions. When the person on the left raised his arm, his left hand was completely a lump of iron. After a while, a trace of a magic circle appeared on his left hand. Because he was too far away, he couldn't hear what they were saying or looking at. Instead, Tioni on the side suddenly said, "They are all wizards." Wizard? A set of sophisticated heavy armor, exuding an aura of keeping strangers away. But he is a wizard. If you have to be a wizard to control such a set of heavy armor, I'm afraid wizards will really become a favorite profession in the future. Linda thought about it wildly. But he knew that the balance of the game had nothing to do with him. Things in the world are originally divided into good and bad. This is not a game. My lord, what are you going to do? William saw Lynn took out a long sword he had never seen before, and knew that he was going to take action. Of course, we will rush over directly. Those who obey will stay, and those who disobey will be killed. Lynn gestured twice. If this team is also human, they should know Magdalena. But they don't look like they are going to the undead reception novice village. They seem to be holding some kind of ceremony. The beast master who has officially joined the group suddenly spoke. Most of the time, he was diligent in playing the role of an unpleasant stinky cat. But his knowledge was indeed something that Linda and others did not have. I knew that the great beast master must know, Linda said. Flattery is free. And there are not many simple people who can get the information they want by saying nice things. Maybe the beast master is born to be simple when filming. The beast master put his hands on his waist, and his addiction to being a teacher came back. Of course, he explained to the outside world that his name was eager to learn. Only those who are good at teaching can be good at learning. When he talks about important things, Lynn will nod constantly. But when he gets the information he wants, he will be too lazy to listen to his chattering and nod perfunctorily. So the beast overlord also has a teacher's addiction to Lynn. I know a little about the Mechanicus. Those monsters gradually give up their lives. But they are very powerful. They will put magic, mechanical metal, and even prayers and prophecies together, and mold them into one thing. This time, they must be trying to gain some power through the ritual of revelation. The beast master spoke disdainfully to the Mechanicus. Lynn felt that his temper dominated most of his words. Anyone could see that the Mechanicus was very good at academic research. They were all wizards, which showed that they had strong spiritual power and extraordinary talent. Prophecy? Miss the Recorder and the Whispering Woman were both good at this. But they could not go far. Lynn sneered at the so-called prophecy. It seemed that few people who believed in prophecy had a good ending. And no matter how the prophecy was, it was impossible to guard the future and do nothing. I heard that before the magic ring was broken. The gods had made a prophecy. And everything now is the result they had long anticipated. Did you predict that you would die? So you chose to lie down and not struggle? Linda suddenly didn't know what to say. But then he thought, if the predicted future was good for you, you would definitely do everything you could to make everything go in the direction of the prophecy. So those gods are not stupid at all. But I don't know whether the undead exist as part of the prophecy. You didn't participate? Lynn suddenly asked. He had been with the beast master for a long time. He wanted to know something about the gods from him. The Daughter of the Night was out of the question. Her strength was only at the level of a 5th ring boss, and she was still wandering around the Shilu continent. The Beast Master was in the demon land. Even if Lin didn't know how strong he was, he must have been at the 7th ring, or even higher in his prime. The cat with his hands on his hips suddenly stopped talking and rolled his eyes at Lin when he looked over. Ask one more question yourself. Follow them, and see before you start. We must rob them today. The people on the other side looked bluffing. But the strongest one is only equivalent to William. Nur walked in front with his cane. As the gods retreated and disappeared, the forces that believed in the Mechanicus gradually fell apart. And unlike other forces, the selection of members of the Mechanicus is very strict. And the spiritual requirements of each member are very high, which ordinary wizards cannot meet. Some people can even see the true face of the elements of the magic world as soon as they open their eyes. They are natural-born mages. And even each of them is very good at research and learning. Only in this way can they have the opportunity to join the Mechanicus. This also led to the extremely small population of the Mechanicus. And the talent affected too many people. However, with the collapse of order, the ideas of various schools were inconsistent. And finally the Mechanicus was like those scattered refugees, joining other forces in the demon land in 2s and 3s, or going to other material planes. Nur is a veteran. Some people call him an iron lump, and some call him a monster without a heart. Later, when the disaster emerged, he was called the mechanical disaster. But Nur ignored these voices. He had already chosen to abandon the low-level emotions of human beings and pursue greater goals. The only members of the team he led who could be called Mechanicus members were him and another iron lump. Compared to Nur, they were mostly human. They had not only abandoned human emotions, but also human bodies, completing spiritual and physical transcendence. It was like the steel cheeks forged by furnace burning covered the head. And when they opened their mouths, the sound of magic came out, which could be transmitted without relying on air. And even when they spoke, it was as if it was appearing in their ears. But Nur didn't like the other party's way of speaking, probably because the part of his body was resisting. Although the remaining soldiers wore various mechanical armors, they were not followers of the Mechanicus, nor did they belong to any school. The proud school would rather perish than give itself to a weaker object. They just cut off their arms, hands and feet, replaced their internal organs, etc., in order to pursue temporary power. They were just a group of pitiful people who gave up themselves for power and had no lofty ideals. Nur, how long will it take? We should be there after we climb over this hill. Nur looked at the scenery ahead, and he hated the scenery of the wilderness and the gray ruins. His heart was beating wildly, but his companions beside him were calm and relaxed, and no longer felt tired. The two sides had argued about the transcendence of the body. Nur did not want to transcend completely, but his talent was limited. The sky seemed to be dyed brown by the ground. It seemed dark, but there was always light. And it could not be completely dark, but it made people feel heavy. In the distance, slender stalagmites emerged densely, but if you look closely, you will find that this is actually the remains of an abandoned building. Nur adjusted his breathing, waiting for the sound of his heartbeat to slowly fade away from his ears. The three people and one cat, who had always been far behind the Mechanicus, also climbed to another hilltop at this time. It makes my blood boil. William scratched his white wolf head. It kept knocking, and I almost couldn't control my killing intent. He turned to look at Lind, and heard Lind say, "It's okay. You don't have to control it. Except for the Beast Master who was not strong enough." Lind and Tyan only needed one hand to beat William. This is the drum beaten in the war. Lind's mood was also slightly fluctuated, but he quickly calmed down. His strength was much stronger than the drummer, so he was not affected by the other party at all. Looking at Tyan again, her expression was calm. Yes, she would not be affected at all, and she didn't have normal emotions. After following these people for a while, Lind was sure that they were not coming for the undead, and the news of the disappearance of the undead had not yet spread. The Mechanicus team began to move forward again, crossing the mountain, and some of the members had begun to lose control and quicken their pace towards the mountain ahead. Their sudden action left the two most special people in the crowd behind. Both of them are strong. Lind glanced at William and made an evaluation in his mind, judging from the aura alone. The half-iron lump is about the strength of 2 Williams, and the pure iron lump is the strength of 3 Williams. William was looked at by Lind, and immediately understood what Lind meant. So he said, "Sir, Go further, and you will reach the territory of the underground ghosts. Lind immediately took out the map he had obtained, which had the forces and villages recorded by the beast merchants in the beast land, and it would be updated every time the caravan did business. So the timeliness was still very good. Among them was the underground ghost that Lind had tried to let the undead contact before. There was also a ghost Selena beside him. Do you know the Far East School of Magic? Lind suddenly remembered and asked the Beast Master casually. I haven't heard of it. The Beast Master answered without thinking. There are so many material planes. Isn't it normal that there is a magic school that you haven't heard of? It's normal. But it's not normal to let the wyvern pull the cart. Just like the magic land is considered a high-level map. But here third ring can also be called strong. Second ring also has a chance to emerge, and will definitely not be sent to pull the cart. What about the Far East continent? I haven't heard of it. While the man and the beast were chatting, William beside them suddenly exclaimed. Linda turned his head, and saw that the scenery in front of him had suddenly changed. Suddenly, the low slopes that rose and fell turned into a wide and thick mountain range that covered the sky. The black and yellow sky was connected by the mountain range. Thinking back to why he didn't see such a high mountain when he came here, Linda turned his head and looked back and found that they had unknowingly walked into a huge downward basin, as if they had walked into a copper furnace hot pot. It seemed that the mountains in front of them blocked the sky, but in fact they were staying in the depression. There was a war here. Linda squatted down and swept the dirt with his palm, revealing the remains of the stone wall under his feet. There were patterns carved on it. I believe it was once a powerful civilization. When he turned his head to look at the Beast Master, the other party shook his cat head. If you don't understand, just pretend you didn't hear it, so as not to lose face for the Beast Master. After walking for a while, he followed the Mechanicus from a distance. Unexpectedly, those people went from walking faster and faster to gradually slowing down, and even kneeled on the ground. Only the most special two were still standing. Those are ghosts. Right? William said. Illusory figures began to appear in the mountains. They were wearing lavender robes and breastplates, holding swords, javelins, and shields. There were long horns on their armor, winding backwards like longhorn beetles. Their equipment looked like some kind of sacrificial guard. They are ghosts, but they don't seem to be planning to take action. Lind nodded. He knew that there were underground ghosts among his neighbors, but he could only rely on hearsay to know what they looked like. Seeing that the two parties were strangely calm, Lind suppressed his doubts. Let's see. Then the ghosts quietly watched the Mechanicus people put various sacrificial objects on the scene, build altars and magic circles, and the two sides really did not disturb each other. My lord. William looked at Lind again, and the voice made him eager to fight. Don't worry. If it was to summon the evil god, Lind turned around and ran without saying a word. If not, he wanted to see what these guys who were suspected to be Mechanicus believers wanted to do, and then take them all down. The whole copper furnace hot pot suddenly began to vibrate. Something is coming. Chapter 455. Surrender and no killing. So surrender first. William? Linda looked at the combat power measurement unit. The other parties seemed to be ready to fully integrate into the sacrificial team in front, and his expression was trance. He just came to see what the mysterious Mechanicus was going to do, and to get some benefits. But he didn't want to lose anyone. The roar in front was getting stronger and stronger. The wind was whistling in the inner wall of the copper furnace hot pot, circling around, and the dark yellow clouds in the sky were also rolled into a cylinder by the wind, as if a yellow cloth cover was buckled down, completely isolating the light outside. But the front of the priest did not get dark, but shone with golden light, like a sun that had just been ignited, which hurt people's eyes and made them unable to look directly. He could vaguely distinguish some things: the hot blood, and the towering figure that seemed like a giant. It was just a little blurry when he looked at the face, but Lind was sure that the thing had absolutely nothing to do with the Mechanicus. These people were probably just collecting knowledge. He couldn't help but turn his head to dodge, and when he looked at Tyan, he found that she looked normal, staring at the golden sun quietly, and then looked at William. But William seemed to have seen some truth in the world, and his face showed a sudden realization. Is this another overlord? The overlord of the beast whispered in Lind's ear. He was not affected, but was very worried. Overlord? An awakened overlord. His strength must be no less than my original strength. He looks familiar. He really ran into a god. Lind's curiosity was suddenly aroused, although he knew that it was not wise to look directly at the gods. If he looked at them a few more times, he might be able to distinguish the difference between gods and humans. His sight was slowly glued to the thing that was shining with golden light. Lin could feel the heat on the other side. The flame seemed to ignite his body through his eyes. Even if he had fire resistance, he couldn't bear it at this moment. If he continued to look, he might really be burned to death by the flames. You can't look directly at the gods. But he couldn't control his consciousness and kept looking subconsciously. Tioni, who was standing beside him, suddenly reached out and pulled his arm. Linda suddenly woke up and instinctively closed his eyes. At the same time, he pressed William's head and forced his head into the soil. William's strength was much worse than Linda's, and he was in a strange state at this time, and he had no strength to resist at all. When Lind opened his eyes again, he found that the golden light and the heat had all disappeared. It was a giant, wearing a leather armor inlaid with copper, but without gears and other things. There was a scroll hanging around his waist. Even if it was sealed with some kind of wax with magic marks, the scroll would still emit bursts of magic light from time to time. There was a short cape hanging on his shoulders, with a pattern he had never seen before. When Lin saw the scroll, he felt that he had a connection with it. But the undead was not there, so there was no connection at the moment. The powerful god finally suppressed his golden light, and his figure gradually condensed, appearing in the eyes of everyone as a giant, instead of being in a state that could not be seen directly. My lord. The sound of William's struggle came out from the earth and rocks, and Linda finally let him go. Awake? What is that? William asked. When he spoke, his language was involuntarily filled with a bit of yearning, as if as long as he could get close to that powerful existence, he would not hesitate to offer everything including his soul. He's not easy to mess with. Linda glanced at the beast master, who was hiding behind him with his tail between his legs. It seemed that the gods were not so peaceful. He is really... William wanted to say something. Linda found that the giant in the distance suddenly looked up in his direction, and his heart suddenly shrank. He was discovered, but the other party calmly withdrew his gaze. That's Secapus. The beast master suddenly spoke. It's the giant god. The giant master. Secapus? This name sounds a bit too familiar. It seems that in the forum, the country next to the south of the Black Swamp Kingdom some time ago was called Secapus. The most interesting entertainment news at that time was that all the undead abandoned Secapus and moved to the Black Swamp Kingdom. From the novice village to the advanced player, no one stayed. If this giant god is related to the kingdom of Secapus, it means that the country has a complete god. Although the god will not fight for humans, it is unlikely to ignore everything. Given Rania's character, she probably won't attack the kingdom of Seacaps. Lin thought about it, and felt that it was very likely that Rania would do it. When the undead were still around, she might have been more cautious, but when the threat of the undead disappeared, Rania would definitely put aside her serious and cautious thoughts. She would definitely not miss the opportunity to lose the undead, and would definitely try her best to expand the territory. With the large amount of resources supplied by the undead, the current Rand Kingdom and the Black Swamp Kingdom are not short of great knight-level strongmen, and they can completely form a combat unit. There are also some people with outstanding talents. That is, those who can only reach the upper level in this life, and they are not let go, and all resources are invested in their cultivation. There are not many top strong people, but in Newbie Village Continent, it is definitely enough to run rampant. This is also the instinct of every king. If the strength is strong enough, they will feel that the place they live in is a bit small, whether in terms of economy or strength. The Land Kingdom must be the strongest on the Shilu continent. The information comes from the entire Shilu continent kingdom data collected by the undead, and the credibility is as high as 80%. Are you familiar with him? Lind asked. The Beast Master replied, Sir Carpus also believes that he is the god of knowledge, and that he has a great sin, which is the sin of greed and endless thirst for knowledge. In the stories of the Demon Land and the faith of Sir Carpus, there are legends about finding the giant's treasure. According to legend, as long as you can find the giant's treasure, you can call Sir Carpus to appear, answer his questions correctly and sincerely, and then you can get the knowledge you want from him. If you answer incorrectly, Sir Carpus will disappear. After finishing speaking, the Beast Master added, I'm not familiar with it. What about you? What god do you call yourself? Linda asked curiously. The Beast Master didn't think it was as high profile as God of Giants? God of Knowledge? No. God of Pets? This is indeed appropriate. But Linda restrained himself from saying it, lest the kitten scratch his face. The previous ceremony continued, but none of the two iron lumps could answer Secapus's question, and Linda had never heard of the question, and magic was his blind spot. Just when the two Mechanicus were regretting that they had such a wealth of knowledge, but could not even answer a question, the giant Secaps looked in the direction of Lind. "Who are you? Is this a question?" Lind stood up and asked. His appearance startled the two Mechanicus. They had never expected that there were other people around, especially after they found that Lind had a hazy feeling that they could not see through or see clearly. They became even more nervous. Then, he was dissatisfied with the giant's question. His own question was difficult. But the Black Knight's question was very simple. "Leonardo DiCaprio." Linda replied. "I can't be sure if your answer is correct," the giant said. But Linda knew why the other party couldn't see through it. Fox heart. As the womb of the fertile god, it has a hidden effect. So, your answer is correct. The giant looked at Linda and asked, "What do you want to know?" "Who are you?" "God of giants." "God of knowledge." "Giant Secaps." "I think you answered correctly." He completed his mission and slowly disappeared. That's it? Linda was a little disappointed. But he also liked the fox heart. It was a good thing to hide the identity. It was really useful. "Sir, why didn't you ask something else just now?" William asked. "I think it's most important to make him disappear quickly." Being stared at by such a powerful and prosperous god, Linda felt uncomfortable all over. He was afraid that he would not dare to draw his sword when facing such a being in the future. Linda heaved a sigh of relief. While William was still savoring the past, the iron lump of the Mechanicus came over. "You shouldn't have asked that question just now." Linda was too lazy to chat with him. So he drew his sword and rushed forward. "William, do it." After saying that, Linda took a step and suddenly shortened the distance between him and the opponent. The sword in his hand lightly lifted the metal lump's arm on the left. With a slight shake of his wrist, the sword was like a small branch. Swoosh! It hit his wrist, and the parts exploded all over the floor. He turned his hand again and slapped the iron lump's face with his sword. With Linda's current strength, it was simply bullying to deal with two iron lumps. After knocking one down, Linda turned sideways and kicked the other half-iron lump in the chest. Unexpectedly, the opponent started spitting blood without being kicked, but soon spitting blood and attacking again. Attacking while spitting blood was very strange. The sharpened magic bullets hit Linda's body, like a fierce fist falling on him. The dense magic bullets, each of which had at least the power of one ring of magic, and the attack speed was fierce. But Linda did not dodge at all and walked forward with big strides. The damage caused by the magic bullets on him was repaired in the blink of an eye, and his physical strength was not exhausted. So he could ignore all attacks and walked forward calmly without shaking. Nur was terrified. The magic machine allowed Nur to say goodbye to the complicated steps of casting spells. He could use magic organs to release magic bullets in batches and quickly. Like a storm. Ordinary people dared not take it head-on. But the man in front of him walked forward calmly, unaffected. When he looked at his companions again, he found that the other party had been completely torn apart. His mentality gradually collapsed. "What do you want to do?" Nur looked at the mysterious man, unable to guess his strength. "Flesh and blood are weak. And the machine is soaring?" Lind raised his hand and grabbed Nur's arm, and pulled it off with a sudden tug. The difference in strength between the two sides was too great, and Lind's overall attributes were improved instead of just a single combat capability. His fourth and fifth ring strengths represented all-round strengths, without any bias. Even because of the Knight Maiden emblem, even the shortcomings of magic were made up. "You?" Nur looked at Lind in shock. Although he could not see the other party's identity and strength, nor could he see his appearance clearly, Nur could be sure that the other party was a person made entirely of flesh and blood. Can the human body be so strong? Can all the Mechanicus transform their bodies into iron lumps like you? Linda casually collected the arm snatched from the other party. Good stuff. Although he can't use it, some disabled soldiers may rely on it to change their fate. Nur dropped his weapon and said he would not resist again. "I need the knowledge of the Mechanicus." Linda got straight to the point. Nur asked back, "Why didn't you ask the God of Wisdom directly just now?" "I forgot," he answered casually. Linda always had a requirement for his trading partners. That is, he must be able to kill them. Otherwise, he would not feel comfortable holding the goods. It is also possible to trade with partners with similar strengths. But if you can't even look at the other party directly, It is better to stay as far away as possible. At most give the undead a task, and let them take action. You can't beat them. And it seems that you can't talk them out. So Nor chose to cooperate obediently. Surrender, and you won't be killed. Without the other party reminding him. He took the initiative to fight for it. His teammate, who had been dismantled, was a lesson for him. He didn't know how many of the other party's energy cores were still lit. If they were all broken, he would be dead. Nur was very conscious of his efforts. Giving up the human body also meant giving up human emotions and even logic. And doing things more rationally. It's not that I don't want to help you get revenge. I'm very rational. Nur said to his companion, who had been dismantled into parts in his heart. Although his brain had not been transformed and his thinking was not affected. Linda looked at the other part of the Mechanicus. These are the treasures. They can only be considered guards. And have undergone the lowest level of transformation. Nur said. They don't have an energy core. That's what we want. He doesn't need it, because he is fully mechanical. Linda walked in front of a person, raised his hand and knocked on the other's chest armor, which turned out to be a magic version of the exoskeleton. It's a pity that the undead are not here. Otherwise he would definitely make a lot of money. Thinking of this, Linda looked at Nur with a fiery look. Are you good at manufacturing? I'm better at charging into battle. Nur said. I don't have the skills to make energy cores yet. Our Plover school focuses on self-transformation to fit the soul. Linda nodded casually and pointed at the armor. What about this? This is the defective product? Nur, who was originally worried that Linda would steal the core knowledge of the Plover school, breathed a sigh of relief. But was the other party really satisfied with this? Impossible. No one wants this kind of garbage. Only those low-level beast men will get one for the sake of titles. Iron courage. Making mechanical armor for outerwear. It's very simple. Nur said. He could make it in batches with his eyes closed. Lin found that although Nur was tall and strong, and his strength was not weak, he was even more cowardly than the beast master. He said something valuable without threatening him. Chapter 456 Consumption. It was a pleasant surprise to encounter the Mechanicus and capture them directly. Linda originally thought that if the other party did not surrender, he would directly dismantle the parts and throw them all to Dome when he returned to the Land Kingdom. With so many new things, Dome and others will definitely be able to see results after a year or two of research. Unexpectedly, Nur was a very rational person. He surrendered immediately when he knew he could not win. I don't know if other Mechanicus believers are the same way. If so, he might have to recruit more of them. They just don't have loyalty. It's enough for them to be tools. Putting aside his thoughts on exploring the Mechanicus, he looked at the underground heroes. The ghosts, who were sometimes crazy and sometimes rational, were once one of the targets that Lin tried to get the undead to contact. Ghosts have endless lifespans. And by the same token, they also have endless knowledge. Are they responsible for guarding the sacrificial site of sea caps? Lin asked. Nor noticed that Lin's eyes fell on him. So he bowed slightly and replied, No, sir. He got into the role very quickly, which made Lin wonder again. What role did the Mechanicus play in the past? Why did they seem so skilled in servility? Is it a religious feature? Ghosts roam here, but they worship the priests and the strong. Nur continued to answer. Lin turned his head and looked at the quiet ghosts. Can we communicate? If you need help. What do you want to communicate? One of the ghosts walked towards Lin. There was a golden light on his body, as if he had walked out of a golden flame. His level was at least legendary. And if he followed the local customs, his strength would be at least 4 rings. Lin could feel the powerful force rushing towards his body, like a turbulent current. When the giant god appeared just now, the fire of knowledge swept across the sky, and the sky was churning under the pressure of the storm. The ghost stood aside obediently. But now they looked down at him when facing him. Could it be that he was not fierce enough? We have nothing to talk to you about, the ghost leader said. But his eyes turned to Tyan. He waved to Tyan. The uninformed fiancé came over and stood beside Lin. You asked? Lin said. Tyan said, Why are you staying here? We lived 800 years ago. A huge city called Molten Gold was built here. We once encountered a war, and were invited to participate in the melee that could determine the survival of multiple races. But we were afraid of the enemy. In that terrible magic war, we chose to turn sides. The defeated Molten Gold cursed us, making us suffer here as ghosts and never rest in peace. Unexpectedly, Linda took the initiative to talk, but was rejected. When Tioni came over, she told all the dark history like pouring beans. Is it because my charm is not enough to trigger the plot? At this moment, Linda suddenly wanted to use 2 dice to try whether he was born with low charm. Otherwise, the NPCs he met along the way did not make friends with him directly. Instead, most of them were beaten first and then conquered. Are you also required to respond to the call of the heirs of molten gold if they step into this place in the future? This is the Lord of the Rings script. He is familiar with it. It was also because of Tyan's question that the ghost leader gave Linda a face and was willing to answer him. No. We need the gift of a powerful god to free our souls and gain eternal rest. It was easy to say, but when the giant god appeared just now, he could not meet their needs. Tyan turned her head and looked at Linda with a questioning look. She is just emotionless, not a fool. Such a ghost army with an average strength of 3 rings and immune to swords and axes can just make up for the part that Linda lacks after losing the undead. Death? Linda asked. Perhaps only the death can satisfy the needs of ghosts and gain eternal rest. If you can contact the death, we can make a promise. Lynn thought and said, in 100 years, I will help you find a wizard on the death path, and let them help you gain eternal rest. 100 years is not a long time for ghosts. But for Lynn, and the help of the undead, it is enough to change the world. Make a contract with a ghost, and you will be cursed? The ghost leader looked at Lynn. Really? Then come on. The number is 300. With an average strength of 3 rings, which is 300 William. The leader's strength of 4 rings is not worth mentioning. Such a force is not needed. It's too wasteful. Lynn is now wearing a vest and does things without any consideration, doing whatever is suitable and convenient for him. This is the first time that Lynn has signed a contract with a ghost. When he dealt with ghosts before, whether it was the ghost witch Selena or the ghosts in the Ghost Valley, they could not do this. Soon he heard a wailing coming from his mind, almost inaudible, like a voice coming from the ice 800 years ago, followed by a second wailing. The curse invaded Lynn's body, lingered in his heart, and tried to penetrate deep into his soul. One of the 2 voices came from the ghost in front of him, and the other was related to the curse of the Molten Gold City. Lynn signed a contract with the ghosts, as if he would also bear the impact of the curse. The sound intertwined quickly, and gradually faded from the golden light, like a brand, and finally fell on Lynn's heart, followed by his heartbeat, and was placed in the 3rd heartbeat. That was the curse brand, rooted deep in Lynn's heartbeat. The heartbeat suddenly began to lose control, beating wildly, and Lynn's blood began to flow uncontrollably. But soon the 2nd heartbeat appeared, and the curse power from the abyss was aroused. But then, the 1st heartbeat came online strongly, easily suppressing the 2nd and 3rd heartbeats. The wailing in his mind finally disappeared, and Lynn's mind calmed down. He looked at the ghosts in front of him. We now have 100 years to cooperate. At your service. 300 ghosts half knelt down, spewing supernatural ghost golden flames from their mouths, burning the dim sky even more turbid. And then one by one turned into golden mist and disappeared. It seemed that the horror just now, the ghosts, etc., were just colorful paper flying during the festival. They are all hiding in a different space, Tioni said. Lynn couldn't sense the existence of those ghosts. But since they had signed a contract related to the curse, they believed that the other party would not break their oath at will. Let's go! Their destination was Stone Beast Castle. On the way, Lynn also learned about the situation of the Mechanicus. The Mechanicus has now completely fallen apart, and the knowledgeable Mechanicus believers have long been divided into more than a dozen schools. And the relationship between the schools is complicated. However, the members of the Mechanicus are very scarce, resulting in few real conflicts. Only those who are close to each other interact more, and those who are not close to each other will never interact with each other. Nur stayed in the Magic Land. He and his companions who had been demolished by Lind wanted to gain more knowledge. Lind was not interested in the knowledge that Nur said. He found that the Plover School where Nur was seemed to like searching for treasures, and looking for secrets based on some ancient legends, or broken treasure maps. Most of the time, they came up empty-handed. But occasionally they could find it successfully. Like this time. Those boring or interesting gossips are just treasure maps. Well, another qualified undead quest NPC. Lin took out the map. He didn't expect that he would be strong and powerful just after leaving. Although the ghosts chose to sign the contract by cursing themselves because of Tyan's charm. Tyan is his fiancée, and what belongs to her belongs to him. If he can capture her, Wouldn't he be more charming? There is a city ahead, which seems to be a mixture of various races. Lind looked at the marked White Bear City. White Bear City, a neutral multi-ethnic city-state, has a small number of buildings, but a large floating population, estimated to be 30,000 to 50,000 people a day, and a large number of caravans. This place once occupied the middle passage from Lionheart Castle to Stone Beast Castle, and could be considered a rest stop. But later, as it became more and more popular, White Bear City became a city-state. Caravans carrying goods passing by would inevitably do business. And as long as there was money to be made, a group of people would surely gather quickly. Lind was shopping at this time. He made a lot of money from the undead. Each person could scrape out thousands, or even tens of thousands of animal teeth. Apart from the money Lind spent on the development of the undead novice village, he still had more than 50 million animal teeth. If he put them out, it would be a huge mountain of animal teeth. With money in his hand, Lind didn't blink when he spent. The armor on him was very ordinary, although Nor could also help make armor for the Mechanicus. Lind was not interested in those gear equipment. He only needed high enough defense, and other fancy functions were not important. Then there are weapons. Not only Lind needs them, William also needs to replace them. Both of them are big wasters of weapons. This is a weapon left by a Beast King. The weapon vendor, who sells weapons, has his own shop. He is introducing weapons to Lind at this time. It is a big sword made entirely of bones. It doesn't look sharp, but there is a weak electric current wrapped around it. Seeing that Lind seems to be very interested, the weapon vendor suddenly grabbed the knife and showed it on the spot. And there were lightning and thunder when he waved it. How much? Linda thought this weapon was very interesting. The great sword should be made of the thigh bone of a beast that can release thunder. It is rough but beautiful, with a wild beauty. 3,000. Linda took the sword and tried to swing it twice, but found that the weapon only released arcs with less than 1 ring power when swinging. If you use this thing in normal combat, you will definitely suffer a great loss. It's just a toy. Linda shook his head and put the sword down. Is there anything better? Half an hour later. Have a nice day. The weapon dealer waved goodbye to Lind warmly. The weapons were almost all swept away, and the weapon dealer made at least 50,000 beast teeth, which was really a huge profit. Do you need this kind of thing? The beast master stuck his head out from Lind's black cloak and expressed strong dissatisfaction with Lind's big purchase just now. This kind of weapon can only exert the strength level of first ring at most. Even if it is a 3-sword style, it is useless. It is just a beautiful waste. I'll take it back and modify it. Linda had just received the curse of the ghost, and was thinking of picking a few that might have suitable attributes. Maybe he could strengthen the curse and give his weapons a different style. Do you think I don't want to buy something better? Many good things are priceless, and can only be found by fate. The next step was the highlight. Linda wanted to buy himself a good set of armor. The armor he had worn before was all good-looking but not practical. He would often be bare-chested or even bare buttocks while fighting. I didn't expect there are magic scrolls. Linda looked at the seller of magic scrolls, and thought of the scroll hanging on the waist of the giant god. It's a pity that they didn't have the chance to meet before, so he could only write it down in a small notebook. When the undead come back, he will ask them to help him renew his relationship with the magic scroll. He looked at the scroll and found that the things recorded on it were also very interesting. They turned out to be some of the offensive methods of the beasts, such as claws, roars, tail swings, etc. There was no way to spend all the money in his hand, so Linda bought it all. I'm so rich. I don't know if anyone is willing to rob me. If they don't come, he will regret it. Suddenly, something attracted Lind's attention. It was a black bug, like a fat maggot, motionless, and like a long black stone. What is this? A very strange bug. The seller was a golden-skinned subhuman, covered in gold powder, and spoke with nobility. But his strength was not very good. Only 2 rings. Lind knew about the diversity of multiple races, so he didn't care about its attitude. Why is it weird? One of my pets accidentally mated with it, and then gave birth to several ugly dog worms. Dog worms? Can you show me? Lind was a little interested. Even the beast master hiding in the cloak was curious. It seemed that it had never seen such a strange creature without reproductive isolation. I have killed it, but I also got some images. The seller took out a scroll, tapped it with his finger, and a pattern appeared quickly. Linda looked at it with envy. He finally saw the high level of the magic land. The bees' sacrifice site he had come into contact with before was probably considered in the mountains. And the Lionheart King and the King of Corruption should only be considered as the urban-rural junction. It's time to continue to update his novice village skills. Before, his magic could only draw simple sketches. Not as clear as photos now. And the things inside seemed alive and twisting. The pattern was finally fully revealed. With a streamlined black dog, but the dog's neck was very long, winding forward, a bit like a giraffe. And it has no eyes, only a conical head, and its mouth is partially split, revealing jagged teeth. When Lind reached out his hand, the dog worm actually bared its teeth at his finger. But after Lind retracted his hand, the dog worm immediately returned to its previous state. And it seemed to be just a magic. This doesn't look like a creature native to the magic world, Lind said. It's no wonder Lind thought so. It doesn't look like a good thing no matter how you look at it. Yes, something from a foreign land, the seller said. There are not many creatures without reproductive isolation, but their bloodlines are very advanced, such as dragons. I don't know if this thing can be considered a biological invasion. Linda bought insects. He bought interesting ones, because he had too much money to spend. He replaced the equipment for himself, William and Tyan, and bought a lot of other things. It only cost more than 400,000 yuan, which was a drop in the bucket for the money Linda had now. Going forward, White Bear Chamber of Commerce. Linda had heard before that there seemed to be space equipment in it. Real space equipment. Chapter 457 Moving Spring Water. In the land of wild beasts. The heat woke Scar up. He slowly opened his eyes, and couldn't help but moisten his dry lips with his tongue. He was in a very bad state after not drinking water for several days. The temperature of the tent rose sharply after being exposed to the hot sun, like a hanging pot for stewing meat. But the air was dry. But he still remembered his mission. So he got up and packed up and prepared to continue on his way. When he got up, he groaned. The sunlight just came in from the gap in the tent, like a golden stick hitting his head, making him dizzy for a while. He reached into the package and fumbled for the water bottle. He pulled out the stopper and poured some water into his mouth. He couldn't pour out any water. He shook the water bottle vigorously twice before pouring out a few drops of bitter salt water. The water fell on his lips and barely relieved his dry lips. However, the salty taste went into his tongue, and he became more thirsty. Scar didn't dare to waste any more time and got up. He drove the scorpion flea out of the cool sand outside, turned over and sat on it, and rode the scorpion flea to leave this place quickly. He rushed all the way and finally arrived at White Bear City. Although he knew there was no Beast King here, there were still some mercenaries staying in the city, so he should be able to find help. After entering the city, Scar immediately started to ask where there were powerful mercenaries. But he found several of them. But they were all unreliable, too weak, and too expensive. Mysterious Black Knight? Scar, who was drinking water to relieve his thirst, heard people chatting nearby and immediately pricked up his ears. However, the people there were whispering, and the content of their conversation was vague. They only said that the Black Knight seemed to be very rich and had a mysterious origin. Some local people were greedy and wanted to take action. The next day, they saw the Black Knight selling the bloody weapons and equipment for money. This continued for 3 or 5 times. As everyone watched the Black Knight sell more and more things and earn more and more money, fewer people bothered him. Some people said that the Black Knight was only slightly weaker than the Beast King, and he was definitely a 5th ring. Some people said that the White Bear Chamber of Commerce had long been bought out by the Black Knight, and now the entire White Bear Chamber of Commerce belonged to the Black Knight. Scar's heart moved. It would be great if he could find such a strong man to help. But such a rich and powerful strong man might not be willing to help. It's useless again. Linda looked at the ghost armor in front of him with some regret. He used the curse to strengthen weapons and equipment. Maybe the Abyss was better at pollution and parasitism, so the success rate was not low when making it. But it was different after it was transformed into a ghost curse. The curse related to death would be like time was taken away after just a slight touch. An armor that was called a sacred weapon by the nobles in the Rand Kingdom began to rust after only a short time of contact with the curse. The ghost curse must be bound to something that will not decay and will not be affected by time. If there is such a thing, why use the ghost curse to strengthen it? It's a waste. Recently, Linda used his wealth to attract some greedy fools to rob him. He used fishing enforcement to rob him several times. But unfortunately, they were all poor and wasted a lot of time. And now his reputation is also bad. Even if he walks alone outside, no one dares to approach him, for fear that he will kill him and loot him. Linda has gradually lost interest in White Bear City. As for the Lord of White Bear City, his strength was only fifth ring. He had only seen the Black Knight once. And after seeing the mess on the battlefield where he fought, he hid himself and refused to come out even if he was killed. He even sold the space equipment that was previously used as a gimmick in the White Bear Chamber of Commerce to Linda. In fact, the so-called space equipment was a blessing equipment, and it must contain fragments of the magic ring. After wearing it, you can take out things by touching your buttocks, and it is also convenient to store. So Linda directly let all the ghosts of molten gold live in it. Whether they build nests in it or scream in it, he can't hear them in the subspace. While Lind was busy here, Nur stopped forging. His work was not easy either. Because he surrendered early, Nur was honored to be the royal blacksmith. Although the Plover School was best at combining the body and the machine to achieve the goal of flesh and blood are weak, and the machine ascends when creating magic machinery. It was not difficult to make the simplest exoskeleton gear magic armor. Now almost all the armor equipment of Lind and others came from Nur's hands. Because Lind was not short of money, and almost bought out all the resources of the entire White Bear City, Nur successfully created a mechanical armor that could withstand the two-ring magic attack. Hearing Nor's voice, Lind threw the weapon that failed to be enhanced aside, thinking that it would be difficult to use this thing to cut the leaks of the Immortal. The Immortal has extremely high requirements for the explosion rate. The reason why gamblers are addicted is not because they always win. If they always win in the game, they are cheating and boring. It is not because they always lose. If they always lose, they will feel disgusted by the production team. It is because they lose more and win less, so that they have the motivation to continue playing. Even Lind felt a little boring at this time. He wasted a lot of weapons and equipment. He didn't feel sorry for the money. He earned too much money from the Immortal, and couldn't spend it all. Is this the latest generation of armor you mentioned? Elemental Wind Type 3. Nur nodded excitedly. Although there are not many technologies used here, and he is not a person who focuses on technology and research. He feels very accomplished in making this set of armor by piling up materials. It is made of various rare minerals, which can amplify the attributes of fire, storm, frost, poison gas, lightning, etc. In Nur's opinion, this set of elemental wind is not perfect enough. First, because Lind requires that the armor must be worn outside. The relationship between the outer armor and the body is just ordinary iron wrapped in flesh, and the coordination will be greatly discounted. Moreover, Lind is still a knight and does not understand magic at all. If he wears it, half of the effect will be wasted. The second is the connection of magic consciousness. Lind is unwilling to amputate and replace body parts, and only recognizes that body movements drive armor. However, the Mechanicus believers of the Plover School use a method of directly connecting weapons and equipment with spiritual consciousness. When using various weapons, it is like using your own hands and feet, which is more convenient and free. It looks good. Lind nodded, and was somewhat satisfied. In recent days, Nur has been constantly creating new equipment, and his armor is also frequently replaced. The ghost cloak behind him. Dozens of ghost arms immediately stretched out. Some were wearing armor, while others had rotten flesh and only bones were left. There was also a ghost head that tried to get out, but was grabbed by the ghost hand next to it and dug into the eye socket, and then pulled back violently. The cloak automatically untied from Lind's back and floated to the side, floating quietly, but the ghost shadow on the cloak was baring its fangs and claws. Like a prison for death. Lind put on the armor, and was too lazy to remember the name. He knew that it would not take long for Nur to create Type 4, Type 5, and Type 6 again. Each time the shape would change greatly, and the function would be even more imaginative. Last time, Nur knew that Linda didn't know magic, so he added several engraved magic scroll patterns into it, which could be released as long as it was activated. But Linda disliked it for a while. When using it, you need to add energy, and the energy warehouse is on your back and emits light. If it is attacked continuously, the energy warehouse will explode. In the game, it will definitely expose the weakness of the small boss. He must have a cramp in his brain to agree to this plan. Under his emphasis, Nur reluctantly changed those useless functions. After putting it on, Lind tried to light 2 fires and found that there was actually a slight improvement. If he was not very sensitive to the direction of energy, He might not have noticed it. If a wizard wears this set of armor, he should be able to exert stronger strength. Ner began to introduce the special features of the elemental wind type 3 he created. If you could accept the most basic body connection, the armor has energy supply, and this bulky armor will not affect your activities when you use it. Instead, it will involve the body to approach the spiritual speed faster. Faster than me? Lind asked back. With his current speed, he is the fastest among the 4th and 5th ring strongmen. He dares to say that he is faster than himself with a set of 2nd ring armor. Ner wanted to nod, but he remembered the speed Lind showed when he was besieged last time, and immediately controlled his mind. Lind really doesn't need mechanical ascension. He is definitely the toughest and fastest man Ner has ever seen. He thought about transforming into a speed type in the future, but stopped talking. Sir! William happened to come over at this time. I have news about what you asked me to investigate before. William has a white wolf head and can get along well in the area. He also has the magic mechanical armor made by Nor, and his strength has also increased. The White Wolf swordsman of the Black Knight is still very famous. Linda arranged for William to investigate the dragon, the fragments of the magic ring, and other news. The former can help him cross to the Tianqing Magic School. Although he is not as eager for that school as before, he still wants to go if he can. The latter is of great importance. Whether it is possible to use magic ring fragments plus old nobles equals ring knights. The formula can be used to create a strong person, or the magic ring fragments can be used as materials to create unique weapons and equipment. The importance of the fragments is self-evident. Although the Land of Beasts also wants to collect the magic ring fragments, they don't seem to care that much. Not as much as Magdalena saw Tioni. However, when Magdalena saw Tioni, she was cautious in her attention. Perhaps because she was afraid that Tioni would turn crazy again. News about the dragon? Lind asked. It's the magic ring fragments. Someone is looking for reinforcements. The reward is the magic ring fragments. Lind's eyes lit up. He would never have too many magic ring fragments. Each fragment could become a prototype of the undead's weapon in the future. He always remembered his responsibilities as the head of the novice village and tried to tie the undead to his chariot with interests. Of course, he had to do a good job of differentiated competition and try to highlight his advantages. And in his plan, he tried to test the influence of a dominant, strong person on the official is also very important. Maybe he can become an important person who can open or close the new version at will. If he can do this in the future, he, the village chief of the novice village, may not be able to go a step further and become a real boss who influences the plot direction, and even when the undead go online and when they go offline. The ghost cloak in the distance floated over. After signing the curse contract with Lind, the ghosts of molten gold followed the 100-year agreement and parasitized in the ghost cloak. It was okay when they were rational at ordinary times, but sometimes those ghosts would go crazy because of the curse and try to break free. Fortunately, the 300 ghosts only lost their minds occasionally, and they didn't go crazy together and obstruct each other. Therefore, you could always see something trying to escape from Lind's cloak, and others trying to stop it. They fight and entangle with each other, and the cloak is like a living purgatory. Lind said, "Go and see." Scar looked at the mysterious knight in front of him. The other party was wearing a set of sophisticated magic armor with rotating gears, and a cloak with ghost arms emerging from time to time. There was not much black on his body, but for some reason, when he saw the other party, his first thought was that the other party was the legendary Black Knight. Maybe black is more appropriate for mystery, and the color is not so important. You want reinforcements? Lind asked. Our hometown is facing a beast tide. Scar nodded. Every year, giant beasts will rush out from the Waste Rock Mountain, and the people in the hometown will organize a defense force to deal with it. But something happened this year. We are short of manpower. Lind was about to ask again, but Scar actually took out 2 pieces of magic ring fragments with black gas. They were not very big, and together they were not even a quarter of the little fingernail. You can say they were just fragments, but the power was real. Linda had the fragments on him, so he could feel it very clearly. Scar didn't know whether it was intentional or not. Although he couldn't detect Linda's expression, he still said, these were hunted and found from the giant beasts that came from the Waste Stone Mountains. Sir? White Wolf swordsman William turned his head and looked at Linda. He didn't care about the magic ring fragments. but was only interested in fighting the giant beasts. Where is the location? Linda might not be tempted by 2 magic ring fragments. But it would be different if there were a pile of fragments. The Waystone Mountains are in the southeast of the Land of Beasts. Ska said immediately. It will take about 2 months to travel. Ska had never been to the Land of Beasts before, and had only heard of it. He changed several mounts along the way, and finally came here on the Scorpion Flea. 2 months of travel. This is the Land of Demons, not the Kingdom of Rand. The travel speed is completely incomparable. If it were the strong men of the Land of Demons, they could travel to 5 or 6 countries in 2 months. The distance is already very far. Southeast. In the opposite direction of Stonebeast Castle. Linda turned around and looked back. He was not very interested in Stonebeast Castle. Since he had a new target, it was okay to change the direction. At worst, he could come back. Even if the undead were online tomorrow, Stonebeast Castle could still be their destination for exploration. There was no such thing as waste. Let's go! Linda reached out and took the 2 magic ring fragments into his hand, and took the deposit in advance. The group, Linda, William, Tioni, plus Scar, Nor and his group of men, set off in a mighty manner. Sir, the distance is too far. We should prepare more water and food. And then? Scar wanted to say more, but Lin suddenly put his hands on the ground. The ground began to shake. The sand dunes in the distance were split in half by the rumbling sound. And a ferocious sandworm as thick as a city wall drilled out and rushed over here with ore. Scar opened his mouth and stared. 2 months is too long. Lin looked at the underground tunnel worm. He had been raising it during this period because it had too high a demand for energy, and he couldn't afford to feed it 3 meals a day, without enough nutrition, and without responding to the call of other legendary wizards, and without taking extra money. The size of the underground tunnel worm has hardly grown, and it is still the size of 3,000 to 5,000 people in its stomach. When the giant sandworm rushed to his eyes, Lin jumped up, and the ghost cloak behind him immediately drilled out hundreds of ghost hands, which actually formed pairs of wings and took Lin up. Others also jumped up, and those with poor strength jumped several times before climbing up. As soon as I landed, I felt like I was stepping on an earthquake zone, and the wind and sand hit my face, and each grain seemed to hit like iron beams. Lin continued to press the sandworm under his feet with his hands to communicate, asking it to move only on the ground and not to go underground. This way it could be used as a means of transportation. If it went underground, it might have moved to a new world when it opened its eyes again. Floating on the surface and moving like this seriously affected the underground tunnel worms, but it was faster than using their legs or riding on scorpion fleas. Scar still felt unreal, lying on the back of the sandworm without any image. But after finding that the wind was just a little stronger, the sandworm's back was thick and wide, as wide and stable as a road. So he felt relieved. In the blink of an eye, they had already run a distance that the scorpion fleas would have run for several days. However, this trip was not easy either. The sandworms made a lot of noise, and many strong men along the way noticed them. However, they were afraid that a strong man might come, so no one took the initiative to attack. Instead, they quietly waited for Lin to violently invade their territory, and then left safely. After this, the arrogant Black Knight successfully left an impression in the eyes of various beast kings, lords, and others. Lin didn't care about those. After discovering that most of the beast kings were strong on the outside but weak on the inside, he was too lazy to pretend to be polite. Those beast kings were also afraid that the beast master would take back the echo, and they dared not fight to the death. Linda didn't care about anyone except the beast king, so the journey was smooth. 10 days later, they had left the land of beasts and successfully arrived in the south of the Devil's Land. The desert and wild environment here were changed to green grass and towering trees, like an enlarged primeval forest. After receiving tens of thousands of animal teeth thrown by Linda as snacks, the sandworm smacked its mouth and happily drilled its head into the stone, merged into the ground and fell asleep, waiting for Linda's next call. Sir Black Knight, the Waystone Mountains are ahead. Scar pointed forward. Linda looked ahead and didn't see any Waystone Mountains, but saw a mountain slowly moving. The underground tunnel worm in front of it was really weak, like a small earthworm. It might be difficult to detect its existence if you stepped on it. This kind of giant can only be dealt with by a strong man who can really collapse the mountains. That giant beast came out of the Waystone Mountains. Scar looked worried. Why did it come out now? What is that? Lind asked. It's a kind of giant beast. We call it Mountain King. There is an active volcano in its body. It can't be killed. We can only expel it. Mountain King? Lind was very interested. There is also an active volcano, which sounds like a moving spring that can be used in conjunction with his ability. Chapter 458. Is there still an ecosystem? Black Shield held a huge sword that was completely out of shape for him, and looked at the Mountain King who was staggering in front of him, with deep worry in his eyes. The opponent's speed was not fast, but the size of the giant beast was so large that the damage caused by just walking slowly forward was like a natural disaster. Can we still hold on? Someone beside him asked unconfidently. The huge beast covered the sky and the sun. Although it did not know magic, it had an extremely tough body and was not too smart. Just walking towards the way Stone Mountain range made people's legs weak, as if a mountain that broke the sky was pressing towards them, and they instinctively wanted to escape. What use would their swords be even if they pierced into the body of the Mountain King? They probably couldn't even pierce the stone on his body, and couldn't hurt his flesh. Black Shield raised his huge sword, his whole body tense. Ready to go, we must fight. Our home is behind us. Raise the sword, and victory is on our side. The others watched Black Shield take the initiative to attack the Mountain King, and their eyes burned with fighting spirit, and they rushed forward with their weapons. Now it was time to not retreat. A demi-human holding a hook rushed forward, but he didn't expect that the Mountain King would generate a terrifying storm comparable to a typhoon just by moving forward. The strong wind blew away the hook he threw out, and the demi-human was blown away. Ordinary first and second rings can't even get close, and the action is a natural disaster. The Black Shield can burst out the strength of the fourth ring, and the giant sword split the strong wind and rushed to the Mountain King's arm. He bit his fangs and looked up. At the end of the road that can be called reaching the sky, there is the head of the Mountain King. He ran on the Mountain King with his feet, and it was more like climbing a dangerous peak than killing. One after another, people rushed up and rushed to the Mountain King's head, trying to find the wounds left in the previous battle and repel the Mountain King. But suddenly there was a roar, and dozens of giant snakes with wings came out from the cracks in the Mountain King's rocks. Black Shield raised his sword and chopped, fighting with the giant snakes in the roar. Only those who were willing to sacrifice themselves could show such fierce power. The first sword knocked out a giant snake, but the giant snake was very smart and immediately entangled Black Shield's giant sword. He had no choice but to throw away the giant sword and raise his arm to rush towards the giant snake, swinging his elbow and hitting it hard. The giant snake struggled in pain, its tail slamming wildly, and because Black Shield locked the snake's head tightly, he actually swung it into a long whip, sweeping away the giant snake that tried to approach, and formed an empty circle around it in a short time. But although Black Shield was brave and could deal with these giant snakes parasitic on the Mountain King, others could not. They were trapped in the sea of snakes and had difficulty moving. Several people were strangled to death by giant snakes. Black Shield pressed the snake's head and punched it twice more. But these things were too hard, and he could not kill them in a short time with just 3 or 2 punches. But his sword was taken away again. The death of others also made Black Shield anxious. The snake could not be killed, but was entangled. No matter how strong Black Shield was, he could only be dragged and could not break free. At this moment, a whirlwind of fire suddenly swept in from the sky, and the heads of 2 big snakes were cut off, and the broken ends were charred. A figure carrying a sword fell from the whirlwind of fire that hit Jishiner. The other party was half squatting on the ground, with a white wolf head full of murderous aura. Black Shield was surprised that a master came to help. Moreover, the armor worn by the other party was very exquisite, and the mana flowed during the action, which was obviously not cheap. The next moment, the white wolf swordsman suddenly stuck out his tongue and smiled. Ha ha ha, sir. I'm stronger. William, who had been holding back for a long time, finally had the opportunity to show his skills. He shouted while slashing the snake with his sword. He was covered in flames and chopped and chopped. The giant snake seemed to be caught in a beacon rolling knife tube. If it got stuck, it would be dead. Linda looked at William, who had turned into a husky, and couldn't help but flick the beast master's head. What did you do? He knew that Dorothy was not easy to deal with. If she knew that he turned her brother into a stupid dog, she would definitely take off her glasses and stare at him to death. Stare. The beast master who came out of Linda's arms also looked at William strangely and said, he may have been like this before. I can only make him grow hair on his face. But I can't make him really turn into a wolf. The beast master couldn't help but complain in his heart, and he doesn't look like a wolf. Just like a stupid dog. Linda looked up. He seemed to be standing at the foot of a giant mountain. And the mountain was still moving. Lord Black Knight. Scar reminded him. Since the white dog swordsman can kill people everywhere, the rumored Black Knight must be stronger. Don't worry. I'll take a look first. The Mountain King was very heavy, and could not cause any harm to Lind. So he ran on the Mountain King. There are ores. And there are such ones. The price in White Bear City is not cheap. Ner can also use it when making mechanical armor. Lind was very surprised. He called Ner. And Ner's eyes lit up when he saw the ore. My lord. They are all good things. The ore with fire element can make you a set of lava amplification armor, which can be named Elemental Wind Type 10. Lind ignored the fact that the other party was keen on naming, but was bad at it, and said, the Mountain King is very big. This is a moving mine. You go mining first. Yes. He swam quickly. Is this the Beast Tooth mine? Beast teeth are made of excavated ores, which contain energy. They are used as trading currency based on energy rather than size, because of the uniqueness of the ore. The energy in the beast tooth ore evaporates very slowly and has low loss. And magic potions? There are fiery red magic potions blooming behind some lava reefs. Although they are not precious things. It is amazing that they grow here. Linda truly saw what a moving treasure mountain is. As he was walking upward, a black shadow suddenly appeared, and claws filled with energy light grabbed Linda's head. Linda tilted his head to avoid it. But he didn't expect that the opponent was actually using a feint attack. The real intention was his abdomen. He raised his knee and hit his armor. And the pain came. But Linda didn't retreat a step. Instead, he raised his hand and punched the opponent's face. The opponent was knocked away by his punch and easily drilled into the lava on the surface of the Mountain King. Although Linda always thought of himself as an agile elemental warrior, his physical strength can actually resist more than the blood cow type boss. Another new species. Linda looked at the thing that crawled out. It was a monkey-like monster. Hairless, but covered with a layer of fiery red scales. When it crawled up, its mind was still a little unclear, and it was shaking its head to regain its spirit. Linda did not touch the Lionheart Great Sword and the Broken Sword, but used Mean's invisible blade to release Mean's soul blade. The invisible sword was already in his hand. After being punched by himself, Linda thought that the opponent would fight in a roundabout way, but he did not expect that the monkey would pounce again, and the claws swept over. Linda stepped back slightly to distance himself, avoiding the punch, and then rushed forward quickly to attack, sending out the invisible blade in his hand, and successfully pierced the opponent's abdomen with one sword. The scales like steel plates immediately had a big hole, and blood flowed out like magma, splashing Linda all over. The monkey roared, but Lind smiled and didn't care. He had already injured the prey. When the other side scratched him with another claw, Lind showed his skills as an agile warrior. He soared into the sky with his toes and claws, and reached above the monkey. Both of them grabbed the sharp soul blade and chopped it down. A bloody button split it in half without any mercy. The monkey in the distance saw this scene, and immediately turned around and ran away. The mountain has evolved its own ecosystem. Lind dispersed the soul blade. The battle was still going on the surface of the Mountain King, with roars and fighting sounds echoing. The strangeness on the body also attracted the attention of the Mountain King. It shook its body frantically, and rock bullets wrapped in high temperature rolled down fiercely. The creatures parasitic on the Mountain King took the opportunity to announce their existence in a high-profile manner, and cooperated with the rock bullets to hunt down the people in the gravel mountains. Lind could see that the seriously injured soldiers were still fighting desperately, but their idea of stopping the Mountain King from moving forward was simply a fantasy. Even the parasites on the surface of the body could not deal with it, let alone kill such a giant beast. A rock bomb hit Lind, but he raised his hand and drew his sword to split it in half, without taking a step back. Far away, Tyne got the order from her fiancé and stood still, but something still approached her, so she fought back skillfully, growing mushrooms. Perhaps it was this loud noise that attracted the attention of the Mountain King. From a distance, many people could see the mushroom cloud growing on the back of the Mountain King. The higher you go, the fewer people there are, not only on your side, but also the things parasitic on the Mountain King. Linda stood at the tip of the Mountain King's nose with a sword in hand. In fact, this place was big enough. So big that it was empty. The two eyes slowly turned into pupils that looked like a huge crack in the abyss. When the dry eyeballs turned, Linda even felt that sand was rubbed out during the rotation. With the body of an ant, facing a giant beast comparable to a mountain, Linda felt a little moved. At this moment, he didn't want to say that he stood here for any selfish reasons. He just had a strong interest in defeating such a giant beast like the undead. Perhaps this was one of the reasons why he pursued strength. Black Shield panted and half knelt on the battlefield. Those big snakes were finally killed, and the enemies who passed through his hands would definitely be bloody. This bloody road was not only contributed by himself, but also by the White Wolf swordsman, who was already wounded. The other party was a powerful warrior, and Black Shield also wanted to persuade him that there was no need to sacrifice his life for this battle. After all, dying to defeat the Mountain King was the duty of himself and others, and it was also his pride. But it was not something that the enthusiastic and powerful White Wolf swordsman in front of him had to bear. But the White Wolf swordsman took out a bottle of precious magic potion, bit off the stopper, and poured it directly into his mouth. After drinking it, he threw it away and took out another bottle, and another bottle. I saw him drink more than a dozen different colors and shapes of magic potions in one breath. Then, the White Wolf swordsman burst out with more powerful power than before. A loud rumbling sound suddenly came. Black Shield turned his head and saw the woman in a long robe holding a golden sword and poking it gently. The thing that pounced on her exploded immediately, and the explosion wave rose into the air and turned into a mushroom cloud. Before they could marvel at the opponent's strength, something else rushed over. But the ending that awaited them was the same. One mushroom cloud after another was planted, and the whole place was fried. Thick smoke billowed, and the hurricane generated by the movement of the Mountain King blew away the smoke, revealing a figure standing quietly, with his hands crossed on his lower abdomen, with a forced smile on his face. The corpse was almost invisible, and under the purification of the mushroom cloud, there was little left. Then Black Shield discovered that the robots that followed the mysterious and powerful mushroom cloud woman actually started mining on the spot. He didn't know whether to praise them for their generosity or persuade them to stop. At this time, he should seize the time to pursue. If these people were his subordinates, Black Shield would definitely arrange them to rush forward. The opportunity to repel the Mountain King is right in front of him. But these people are not. And the existence of the Mushroom Cloud Woman also makes Black Shield dare not have any small thoughts. The gap between the two sides is huge. He can only take advantage of this inexplicable victory to rest, and then find a way to rush forward and stop the Mountain King. But Black Shield suddenly heard someone shouting, "What is that?" "What?" "Look up." "Up there." The person who spoke was also his companion, who had survived the sudden mushroom reinforcements just now, and was now curled up and hiding. Black Shield immediately stood up and raised his sight from the broken mountain road on the surface of the Mountain King's body to the direction of the sky. That was the huge head of the Mountain King. Is that a person? Black Shield was shocked to find that there seemed to be a figure floating in front of the Mountain King. The light and flames will not go out, Black Shield said to himself. Who is that person? The distance was too far, and Black Shield could only see a figure as big as an ant. However, the ant's next behavior frightened Black Shield. The opponent raised his hands high, and a blue sword appeared in his hands. The sword was getting bigger and bigger as time passed. At this time, it looked like an ant carrying a stick. He didn't dare to imagine the opponent's strength. Maybe 5 rings, 6 rings, or even 7 rings. But no matter what, Black Shield hoped that the opponent could drive the Mountain King away. If he could defeat the opponent, he also felt that it was impossible. He didn't dare to say that he could kill a giant beast of this level standing still for him to kill. But the little black ant actually swung down the huge azure sword. The blade was as sharp as the sun, and it swept out from the hands of the mysterious little black ant and hit the head of the Mountain King with an astonishing length. Its sharpness easily cut through the rock shell on the surface of the Mountain King, which was formed by years of lava condensation. And a deep pit was seen in the head, as if most of the head was sunken in. The deafening roar was just the beginning. After tearing the rock shell, the scales and flames of the Mountain King rushed into the sky, and countless broken rocks wrapped in flames turned into a storm that could be called a disaster. Fortunately, this place is far from their residence. Otherwise, they would be collectively wiped out with just this collision. Even so, Countless first and second rings who wandered under the Mountain King and could not come up were melted by the heat wave and buried here. The entire Mountain King began to shake violently, and the mountain road under Black Shield's feet suddenly cracked a big crack, and rocks everywhere began to collapse and fall, almost burying people completely. But now Black Shield's attention is only on that man, who actually hurt the Mountain King with one sword. Black Knight. A voice came from Black Shield's ear. He turned his head and found that it was his own man Scar. Scar smiled proudly. The strong man I found. Chapter 459. The Black Knights are coming. Devil's Land. Southwest. Gravel Mountains. The beast tide surges again. The major forces quickly assembled. They had already prepared for a hard battle. They had no other choice but to resist to the death. Behind them was the Eternal Summer's Nest, the defense line of the residents of Gravel Mountains. The giant blacksmith in the village carried a big knife and exerted force on the handle of the knife. As the war continued, more and more of them died. But the number of giant beasts on the other side of Gravel Mountains also increased. As one increased, the other decreased. Not only the blacksmith, but even the maids in the tavern had to carry long spears to the battlefield. Their eyes flashed with fear, and their fighting spirit was burning. A total of 30,000 people gathered here, all of whom were above the first ring. Such a team might easily overthrow any local force in other material planes. But here they were like flesh and blood bricks, and could only use their lives to resist the impact, and pray that their death could slightly slow down the invasion. This is our most crucial battle. The person who spoke was like a lion with frizzy hair, wearing animal skin armor, revealing a palm of hard hair, and his voice was as loud as a bell. Behind us is the Eternal Summer Nest, our home. If the giant beast breaks through this time, we have no way to retreat. He is the Lord of the Eternal Summer Nest, known as Golden Claw Quick. It is said that he sacrificed his heart in a certain Beast Feast church to gain powerful strength. Now he has reached the 5th ring of strength and is the undisputed strongest. The stories about him can be told from a long time ago. Even if a successful person just fell down and got up again in his childhood, he can be regarded as part of the legend. There is no shortage of flatterers in the world. We have to deal with not only large beasts, but also those poisonous birds that are good at spraying poison. They are very fast, although they are not strong. Their bodies will spray out strong poison. If they accidentally touch blood, they will be corroded. There are also colossi. Speaking of the colossus, G now Quake tried to adjust his inner emotions. Those things had just appeared not long ago, and they were in a completely different ecological system from the giant beasts. There was no cooperative relationship between the two sides. But it was possible that the giant beasts found that the colossus was dangerous, and there was no benefit in fighting with them. So they lived in peace with each other. At this time, the giant beasts and the colossus rushed towards the Gravel Mountains together, and the danger rose sharply. The colossus is a product of some kind of magic. It is huge and has no weaknesses in its body. We once had an 8-man team that came into contact with it, but it was difficult to break their magic shell. Although he knew that he couldn't say discouraging words at a critical moment, G now Quake still couldn't control his emotions at the moment, and it was inevitable that he would speak with some tragic and heroic spirit. As for that team, in the end, only one person came back seriously injured, and died not long after. The magic giant that couldn't be easily broken. The rampant giant beast tide. They were a piece of meat destined to be swallowed in one bite. Everyone get ready. Defend our home. G now Quake raised his fist. The scene roared together. Defend our homeland. Defend our homeland. Goldclaw Quick turned and left. There was still other work to do after the mobilization, and they needed reinforcements. Have you contacted Scar? Goldclaw Quick looked at the woman holding the beast claw hammer. She was burly, and had nothing to do with beauty. She was wearing a set of colorful armor, and the scarf around her neck that looked like a blooming flower was made from the tail feathers of a giant beast that could only spit out rainbow mist. It could leave colorful light and shadows when moving, making the enemy dazed. The woman's strength is only 2 rings, but her brother is Scar. When mentioning Scar, we have to mention the helper who was once found, the mysterious and powerful. Later, Scar successfully joined the team of that strong man. G now Quake wanted to keep a good impression and kept Scar's sister by his side. They needed to gather all their strength. I have contacted her and said that she will definitely come today. The woman nodded. She was about to say something but stopped. What do you want to ask? G now Quake noticed her expression. That Black Knight, can he really fight against the beast tide? The woman asked worriedly. even if he once forced the Mountain King to retreat. Her brother was loyal to the Black Knight and respected him very much. But she still didn't believe that someone could be so powerful and turn the tide. You don't understand. Goldclaw quick shook his head. He could get more information for the Black Knight. The Beast Tide is not a problem at all. He is more powerful than you can imagine. But they are very busy and won't stay in one place for a long time. Scar followed him. So sometimes there would be some news, such as the Black Knight was wandering in a place with treasure, or there was news that he had a conflict with the lord of a place. Goldclaw quick would also get news from other places. Looting, invasion, and occasionally taking some mercenary tasks. Although the Black Knight Corps was small in number, it became the most famous force in the Demon Land from the west to the southwest. It is said that a Beast King once wanted to attack the Black Knight, but later it was left unfinished. No one knew what happened. But since then the other party has become famous, and has become a powerful force that cannot be ignored in this land. If there is a Beast King willing to help the stone-shattering mountains, the giant Beast Tide will not be a problem at all. Similarly, the Black Knight, who can be compared with the Beast King, is also qualified to be looked up to by people. Really? The woman was skeptical. Of course, she believed in the powerful Golden Claw Quick. But when she thought of her brother, she really didn't think that there was anything special about the Legion that allowed Scar to join. The requirements were too low. Even Scar wanted it. My lord, the reinforcements of Red Kite are here. Someone approached quickly, with excitement on his face, as if relieved. The Red Kite Magic Artillery Regiment has a group of orcs with the title of Iron Heart. It is said that the leader is a believer of the Hornbill School of the Mechanicus. They can definitely hold out longer if they can invite such a strong team to help. My lord, the Blue Shark mercenaries are here too. I hope we can hold out this time. Goldclaw quick looked worried. This time the enemy is really more terrible than every time before. It is not enough to win with a large number. But time waits for no one. Stay close to the defense line and counterattack at any time. He couldn't give the order to attack. With the defensive offensive built up, they could hold out for a little longer. But if they took the initiative to attack, they would be like a turtle that had automatically shed its shell, and would only die faster. Like a needle piercing from the sun, the spewing beams of light burst out from the other side of the Gravel Mountains, sweeping across a very long distance to the army of the Gravel Mountains. Each beam was as thick as 3 or 5 people. The beams of light splashed liquid when they hit the ground, and the burning stream swallowed everything that was touched, easily shooting through the high defensive wall built by the resistance army, and hitting the ground obliquely, leaving a deep pit. The deafening roar and the exclamation behind the defense line represent the official start of this war. The defense line collapsed, and the dust rolled in the flying flames. The display at the front became like being in purgatory when it was touched by the flames, melting in an instant. And even if they did not die, they would be buried by the collapsed defense line boulders. When the defense line collapsed in an instant, they finally saw what they were facing. Compared with the giant beast, the magic giant statue is much smaller, about 5 people tall, wrapped in magic. And the one eye with magic patterns on its head will fluctuate when gathering the energy in the air, shrinking the blue ring, and then gathering to a certain extent, condensing into red before transforming into a beam of light for release. The sky was left with red marks. The suffocating heat was still rolling around, and the sand that swept across his face was as scorching as charcoal ash. The leader of the Red Kite Magic Artillery Corps clearly realized that in the moment just now, he had lost dozens of elite members and 5 magic cannons. The attack of the giant beast tide had just begun, but they were already on the verge of collapse. The collapse of the surrounding defense line continued, and there were constant deaths and screams. A corpse was blown away and rolled in front of the leader of the Red Kite Magic Artillery Corps. Its right leg had disappeared, and its body was obviously blown away by the bombardment just now. Damn it! Red Kite Magic Artillery Regiment, fire! The leader of the Magic Artillery Regiment shouted loudly. In such a noisy environment, he was not sure whether his roar could reach everyone's ears. But they had to fight back. The counterattack has begun. Goldclaw quick carried a knife across the front line. A gully became a temporary shelter for the seriously injured, crowded with soldiers with missing arms and legs. Everyone's armor had been completely buried in blood. It was impossible to tell which faction they came from, and even impossible to tell what race some of the charred figures were. Now, it doesn't matter which side it is. Everyone's head is tied to this battle. Hold on or die. What's going on? Goldclaw Quick asked. His subordinates reported. The Red Kite Magic Artillery Regiment is still safe. Successfully defeated a Colossus. And the melee troops have also engaged in the battle and launched a charge. But they can only withstand this wave of attacks at most. Goldclaw Quick looked into the distance. And there were crowds of people. The warriors seemed very vulnerable in the impact of the beast tide. There are too many of them. The subordinates were helpless. Although we have the Red Kite Magic Artillery Corps and Blue Sharks. Their colossi have a range and power that can reach the gate of the Eternal Summer Nest. Goldclaw Quick nodded helplessly. If there were only the giant beasts but no colossi, perhaps they could hold on for a little longer and might be able to barely repel the beast tide. The Red Kite Magic Artillery Corps is his trump card. It is not easy to invite this group of guys. But now, the Magic Artillery Corps is still not enough. Goldclaw Quick looked at the large number of corpses in front of him, and the beasts that were 3 to 5 times the size of the warriors, and his anger rose in his heart. Keep holding on, he spoke, and he could only say this. We must not give up. Although the colossi are very powerful, their attack frequency is not high, and they mainly focus on destroying the defense line, which is definitely to clear the way for the giant beasts. As long as we resist, they will soon be tired and retreat. At this point, Now Quake has reacted. This beast-tide attack is not the unconscious attack of the giant beasts in the past. Nor is it for the most basic reasons such as hunting. But someone is guiding it behind the scenes. The person behind the scenes tried to completely capture the enemy, make his own side collapse, and capture everyone in one fell swoop. The enemy not only wanted to win, but also wanted an absolute victory of annihilation. The death storm created by the soul-shaking bombing swept every corner, and the bloodthirsty beasts dragged the soldiers into the battlefield that was enough to be destroyed with death. Purgatory is gradually devouring the land under our feet. You can retire now. Kill! Goldclaw Quick can no longer stand behind. He wants to let the enemy know that he is definitely not just capable of this. The soldiers looked at him. Their bloodshot eyes also ignited with anger. If you want to win, if you want to trample us, then step on my body. Come on! Thousands of giant beasts rushed over in front of them, with billowing black smoke that covered the sky. Quake carried a big knife and looked at the unmatched storm in front of him. The unyielding fighting spirit in his heart made him smile. He would fight to the last moment. Since he could not win, he had to face death with a glorious attitude. The air was torn apart again and again by the artillery and beams of fire from both sides, making it difficult to breathe, even if there were occasional fragments of air that fell into the mouth and nose. It would burn the trachea and sting the nerves. Boom! The explosion landed at the feet of Quake, and although he reacted in time, he was still thrown to the ground. Stone chips and flames flew everywhere, turning into a rain of fire that spread from the ground. Fortunately, the explosion did not affect a large area, and only a few soldiers were crushed to pieces. Quake climbed up. His ears were buzzing. His head was dizzy, and he could barely feel the burning in the air with a twitching nose. He held on, and leaped up with a knife in hand, when the blue-haired flying dragon with horns and wings pounced in front of him. The blue-haired flying dragon was not big in size, and it looked more like a flying squirrel than a dragon, with a wide membrane of flesh growing between its front and back limbs. After its thin body was spread out, it was like a roof completely covering its head. Quake leaped and cut open the roof, then rolled to the ground. The blue-haired flying dragon smashed to the ground, further breaking the already broken defense line behind it. After falling to the ground, it twitched a few times and completely lost its movement. Quake leaned on his knife and shook his head to drive away the buzzing in his ears. In front of him, there were not only giant beasts, but also invincible giants. With his eyes focused, he could see that the Blue Shark Corps, known as the Blue Sharks in the desert, was torn apart after colliding with the giant. They fought hard, but it was difficult for swords to break the giant's magic defense. Only the leader of the Blue Shark Corps fought hard with his powerful strength. The battlefield became more and more hazy in Quake's eyes, and he forced himself to cheer up. Suddenly, a voice came, which was completely different from the voice in the battlefield ahead. I said it would be useful to get a few more teleportation magic coordinates. Otherwise, how long would it take to walk? Goldclaw Quick immediately looked up at the source of the voice. A figure wearing a ghost cloak fell from the sky, like a meteorite, hitting the head of the Colossus, and the blue soul blade in his hand easily pierced the Colossus's head. The Colossus turned into rubble. He easily destroyed a Colossus just by appearing. Although the armor on his body has become more complex and sophisticated, no one can mistake the cloak with ghosts constantly coming out. Black Knight. Goldclaw quick breathed a sigh of relief. The cloak behind the Black Knight fluttered, and hundreds of golden ghosts rushed out from it, ignoring any physical attacks from the giant beasts, rushing forward like a sea of ants, devouring the giant beasts one by one. The reinforcements from the Black Knight Legion have arrived, and the counterattack can finally begin. Chapter 460. All those fancy things. Linda stood on the rubble of the Colossus, watching the golden ghosts gather and rush towards the Colossi one by one, hacking and gnawing at the magic defenses on their bodies. Wherever they passed, only broken boulders were left, making the powerful Colossi and giant beasts that the entire Rubble Mountain range could not resist helpless in front of these ghosts that could ignore physical attacks. Tyne wore a set of mechanical light armor long skirt. Tall black boots popped out from the corner of the skirt, and the fragments of the magic ring behind her head condensed into a long sword. Her fighting style did not change much. Still with growing mushrooms is the main method. As a ring sister with huge fragments, Tyne does not need to consider energy consumption when outputting. She can output unlimitedly without fatigue, although the upper limit is compressed. The high-frequency bombing is not something that ordinary enemies can withstand, especially facing a group of giant beasts around 3 rings. Tyne swept them away with swords, and the mushroom cloud devoured them completely, leaving only scattered corpses on the ground. In the year when the undead disappeared, Lynn led the team to wander around and developed in the direction of rangers. They aimed to collect legendary potion materials and explored some treasures. The overall strength was improved. It is not important to be famous, because Linda is more concerned about the fame brought by the Black Knight vest than the fame brought by the Black Knight vest. He hopes that the undead will recognize him as Linda Alman. However, the advantage of having a vest is that you can do things more freely. The biggest problem recently appeared in the dispute with the Beast King. They were interested in the same magic potion and fought each other, but in the end, Linda was more skilled and bought it with money. If he had known that he could just spend money, why would he fight to the death? The wealth on him was the wealth that the undead had won over half of the Lionheart Castle, and he could not spend it all. The reputation of the Black Knights also completely surpassed that of the undead within a year. Even though he was famous, no one knew the fighting style of the Black Knights. They only knew that they were few in number, but could form an army, and that they were strong and rarely defeated. Without a Mountain King-level monster, it's easy to deal with it as a whole. Lynn stopped and had no intention of taking action. He only needed to watch his men take action. Even William's strength was improved within this year, and he was successfully promoted to the epic level. For example, Nur of the Mechanicus. With Lynn's abundant financial support and the accumulation of various precious materials, became a weapon master despite being a follower of the Plover School, who was not good at making external equipment and weapons. I heard from Scar that the other side of the Gravel Mountains is connected to another strange country. The last time he came, he wanted to collect more fragments of the magic ring, but found that the fragments brought by the Beast Tide were very rare and the frequency was not high. So he took the team away to busy himself with other things. Since then, Scar has been reporting to him about the situation in the Gravel Mountains, but most of the time it was just a minor incident. They were even able to organize a team to explore in depth, and no major problems occurred. Now the legendary potions have been collected almost completely. Only the legendary Heart of Disaster is missing. Linda plans to contact the Abyss that he has not contacted for a long time. If the best way to obtain the legendary Heart of Disaster is to obtain it from the Abyss. However, contacting the Abyss is very likely to make the undead return early. He must be fully prepared. And before the undead may return, he must grasp the information of unexplored places in advance to ensure his information advantage. But according to the information he got from the Beast King and Beast Master, the Gravel Mountains are just a relatively remote Magic Valley area, and there are no particularly powerful strongmen. What are we eating tonight? I heard from Scar that the meat of those giant beasts tastes very good. Lynn's thoughts were scattered. This level of war was not taken seriously by him at all. He missed having a good chef to help him cook delicious food, surrounded by the 3-ring nun who has no ambition, Era who only wants to improve his strength, and the Iron Lump who ascends mechanically. Life is full of boredom. Only Scar is a little slick. But Scar's cooking skills are also not good. The only way to deal with good ingredients is to roast and fry, which is a waste. Stacking. bombing, invincible. The Colossi, which are the main force of the distant attack in the Beast Tide, have completely lost their threat because they are entangled by ghosts. And the wind direction of the battlefield has quickly changed. The leader of the Red Kite Demon Artillery Corps looked at the followers of the Plover School, who were killing people everywhere, and opened his mouth slightly. Is this still the iron lump that believes in mechanical ascension? Why did they suddenly start firing? And the power of the fire was even stronger, directly washing the ground. Then what is our Hornbill School? Golden Claw quick looked at the figure of Quang Ba standing on the battlefield. Hearing about it is worse than meeting it in person. He looked at the figure of the powerful god of war, who appeared on the stage with great strength, and could feel the other party's wildness of looking down on all living beings. The cloaked figure just stood on the ruined battlefield, as if invincible, which made people feel odd. He should be thinking about how to win this war. No. Maybe he has been thinking about what to do after the victory of the war. Why doesn't he attack? Scar's sister asked. If the Black Knight participated in this war, maybe the war could end faster. Not sure. He must be thinking about more important things. Goldclaw quick admired the Black Knight very much. But he came. I am very grateful. Thank God. The bombardment finally stopped. The giant Beast Tide was blocked by the Black Knights, like a flood being blocked by a gate, and returned in vain. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. In the trenches of the front line, hundreds of wounded soldiers were crowded here. This was the last hiding place. Since they were injured in the war, they could only hide here and pray for the end of the war. The long fight seemed to have lasted for countless years. Long and exhausting. The people around him leaned against the ruins and gasped. Their bodies were twisted by the huge force. Even if this was a magical world, it would take a very long time to fully recover their bodies. But fortunately everyone survived. Some people began to pull their colleagues out of the ruins. The joy of survival washed away the pain in their bodies. But soon the joy disappeared because they had lost more. No one could taste the joy of victory. Only emptiness was left. If no strong help came, what awaited them would be darkness. A darkness that could make their entire world disappear. Thank you for your help, Black Knight. Goldclaw quick walked towards Lind. Although he was a 5-ring strongman, his attitude was very humble. It's just a piece of cake, Linda replied. Without your help, Goldclaw quick wanted to say something else, as if he was thanking the rescue after the victory of the war. Linda raised his hand to interrupt the other party. As the stronger party, he was qualified to skip the conversation. The war is not over yet, sir. Linda looked at the gravel mountains. Our goal is over there. If it were in the past, Linda would not care about the Beast Tide at all. He even wanted to wait for the undead to come online and give them a Monster Hunter experience zone. But after discovering the appearance of the Colossus, his thoughts changed. Puppet magic creations are knowledge that the Mechanicus has not mastered, whether used for war or defense. It is a very important technology, and his knowledge collection habit has come into play again. What? Goldclaw quick was startled and looked in the direction Lind was facing. Counterattack the gravel mountains? For a long time, they, who were based in the Eternal Summer Nest, could only resist the Beast Tide in the gravel mountains. Not to mention the loss of strong men now. Even at the strongest time, it was impossible to counterattack. At that time, they had a large number of 5-ring strongmen on the other side of the gravel mountains. In a secret room on the charred and rugged magic wasteland, the magic circle was projecting the war outside. Hundreds of wizards wearing pointed hats were shaking, and every time a colossus collapsed, a wizard would fall down in fear. Damn it! Van Dyke gritted his teeth. Located south of the gravel mountains, the magic scorched earth, which is considered to be an abandoned corner on the edge of the magic land, is different from the rich and fertile magic land. There is no vitality here. Only twisted rocks and dead trees that can never be detected with traces of life. If we say that after the collapse of the magic ring, the entire ecology of Shilu continent has undergone earth-shaking changes, at least there are still magic and new era life, then this scorched earth can be called a land of death. The past civilization has never left any traces here. Even the scattered ruins have long been eroded by time and cannot be distinguished from the times, and have no value. Van Dyke came from other planes. He had heard many stories about the great magic land, and hoped to go to a new world. For this, he gathered the power of the entire country, even robbed and plundered every bit of value from every life. He was not doing this for his own selfishness. He hoped to take the seeds away and go to a greater place to find a greater future. Life is about exploration. He sacrificed part of the race, and let another part of the elite embark on a longer journey. He succeeded, but not completely. He was trapped here. Accidentally trapped in this scorched earth. And there are terrible behemoths here. Van Dyke can only hide and grow slowly, looking for a way to escape. The Colossus is the knowledge he brought. After countless attempts, he found that the behemoth had rare minerals and various magical materials. So Van Dyke returned to his old job and began to make colossi. My lord, they are coming. Those ghosts. Those damn beasts, don't dare to provoke them. Use magic to stop them. Stop? It's impossible to stop. Linda fully exerted his extreme speed, and was carried by the molten gold ghosts, turning into a ball of golden wind and rushing forward. The weak beast was split in half by his sword. The attack of the soul blade can ignore defense and cause real damage. It is simply the nemesis of these beasts that rely on their powerful and bulky bodies to bully others. There is no magic at all. Is this place really abandoned? Isn't it called the Land of Magic? Linda looked ahead. The gravel mountains were like a huge ecosystem. It took Linda a very long time to pass through it. When he passed through, Tyan, William, Nor and others were completely left behind by him. It might take 3 to 5 days to catch up. With new equipment and Ghost Cloak, Linda's flying and running speed has surpassed the flying dragon Alex, who still stayed in the Land Kingdom. Now his biggest advantage is speed. He uses extremely fast speed and various emblems to burst out and launch fatal attacks. A scorched earth shoal. Further away is the endless sea level lost in darkness and fog. And the giant beasts come from there. They are not the product of this continent, but migrate from a certain plane. Linda even noticed that some giant beasts just passed by and left quickly. They didn't like this place, so they didn't stay. He locked his eyes quickly, and a familiar breath suddenly came. Abyss? I was having a headache and couldn't find the other party, but I didn't expect that he would come to my door on his own initiative. However, the sudden pull of the Abyss was not a good sign. I respond to your call. Van Dyke knelt on the ground. He had no way out. He deeply understood that the power brought a chilling temptation and led people to depravity. But Van Dyke had no choice but to let go of himself and completely accept the power, so as to defeat the mysterious strongman who suddenly appeared and turned the war around. The power poured into Van Dyke's body, and he found that he had lost control of his body in an instant. His heart beat slowly. His throat seemed to be filled with something, and sticky liquid overflowed from his mouth and nose, and turned into a sticky filament like a fungus blanket, which quickly parasitized on the surface of his skin pores and wrapped around his entire head. He couldn't help coughing while panting, and blood clots were coughed out of his throat. Van Dyke was horrified to find that his consciousness was weakening. As powerful forces poured into his body, life was quickly being drained from his body. His worries were soon buried by the joy brought by the growth of strength. Van Dyke looked up and saw a glimpse of the blue sky through the gap in the secret room. He raised his palm, and the surrounding stones and elements automatically combined to form a new colossus. Breaking through the secret room, the seeds that he brought to the new world were killed and wounded. Van Dyke stood on the shoulder of the colossus, looking at the figure wrapped in the fluttering cloak. He could feel that the opponent's strength was not as strong as his own. He pushed forward with both hands, and the magic eye of the colossus's head began to gather energy in circles. Lin suddenly dodged and rushed towards the colossus. His body turned into a trail of flames and pierced through the clouds. He fell towards the colossus's head with a bang, and the soul blade in his hand pierced it. You really should learn from the undead and read the bar in front of me when fighting? Don't you know that the most important thing in PvP is to deal real damage without pre-swing? What's the point of all those fancy things? The explosion at close range and advance blew Van Dyke away, and the pus on his body was shaken off, revealing part of his skin. Why so powerful? Van Dyke didn't understand. He saw death. Chapter 461. I am 2.0 boss? Death loomed over his head. Van Dyke looked up with a fuzzy consciousness. The hot and golden trajectory penetrated his ritual, so he closed his eyes. When Lin began to attack, the infinite superposition and extremely fast attack speed made him more and more courageous. As long as the enemy did not respond to him with an absolute instant kill attitude, the only thing waiting for the opponent was defeat. What's more, Van Dyke's strength was not strong. The explosive power of the Colossus he relied on was enough to kill many strong men in seconds, but the speed was too slow and the accuracy was too poor. He might play a role in the war, and even wiped out a city with bombing. But he could not deal with Lind, a warrior who mainly relied on agility. At the last moment, Van Dyke embraced the Abyss and dedicated himself. But Lind's second heartbeat was already filled with the curse of the Abyss. Those pollutions could not affect him at all. He was a boss-type NPC with 3 health bars. After the magic ring was broken, I tried to find the truth. You may not believe it. We don't believe in the magic ring. But we can't resist the truth it brings us. Van Dyke said softly. I came here to follow the guidance of the future. But I got lost in this scorched earth. Lost? Linda turned his head and looked at the magical scorched earth under his feet. This was just the edge of the border. There were countless similar places in the world. What are you lost about? He asked. He really didn't understand why he was lost in this place. If he was trapped here, he could just find a way to escape. Why bother launching an invasion war? More powerful power. After seeing those terrifying beasts, Van Dyke said. They? Linda looked at the shadow of the beast in the distance. And the beast tide stopped again. Perhaps their appearance is related to the breaking of the magic ring. For example, the change of ecological environment leads to migration. Although this is a magic world, Lind has seen more than one large-scale migration of monsters, and even disasters for various reasons over the years. The invasion of the Abyss Rift is also a kind of migration. However, Lind has no time to sigh about the difficulty of life. He has hundreds of millions of living fathers on his head. If he has time to sigh for others, he might as well turn this sigh into a speech and give a passionate speech when the undead come online. In the past year without the undead, Lind even felt that he had become freer. And he didn't have to rack his brains to maintain the image of the Lion Duke. They just want to find a place to live. You think too much. Lind's sword fell. This is typical of Lind's style of doing things. He kills everyone he can. Dark and sticky pus bloomed from Van Dyke's body. And the giant beast in the distance seemed to notice it, and moved away in another direction with disgust. The black and sticky pus wrapped around Lind, like a boiling swamp wrapped around Lind, making him burning. Linda just had the idea of escaping, but found that the space around him had been completely locked, and he'd lost the chance to escape. Although the black sticky was just the abyss, and could not cause any harm to him, the feeling of being wrapped in sticky pus was uncomfortable. However, when the world was about to collapse and everything was about to fall into darkness, the all-pervasive force that wanted to completely wrap Linda suddenly stopped. You? The voice was familiar. It was the abyss. The voice from the advent of darkness seemed to plunge the entire world into an extremely fierce destruction, and would make all life and consciousness fall into panic. In layman's terms, the strength of the abyss is above the beast overlord in its prime, and above the seventh ring, which is far beyond the reach of Lind now. Lind quickly entered the state. As an NPC who listed the service spirit as his strongest survival skill, his role-playing skills have reached perfection. My lord. It's me. The second heartbeat was getting faster and louder. I have gathered all my strength. The voice of the abyss sounded from the bottom of Lind's heart. Lind thought to himself, if you hadn't gathered all your strength, the undead wouldn't have gone offline so early. I am destined to embark on the road of killing gods. Tear those high gods to pieces, and use their corpses to build the road to kingship. But I am too busy now. So you need to spread my name. The voice of the abyss did not sound changed, but Lind could feel a hint of urgency. If he guessed correctly, this guy was anxious. Although it is unknown who controls the abyss. According to the round-faced Princess Magdalena, the ring knights are stationed in various places. Although the strong men have lost control and run away, it does not mean that they will go along with the prisoners they are holding. I'm crazy. You're squatting. If you don't obey, I'll beat you. What should I do? Linda asked. He just asked, not really intending to obey. Do your best. Attack the material plane. Chant my name with a scream. The abyss has no choice. He has already given everything he can. But Linda has not contacted him. Now, while the king of Black Phosphorus's consciousness is transferred, he is digging a hole in the prison with a spoon and trying to get out. But escaping from prison is not something that can be done by one person. And someone needs to be outside to help. Linda, who can defeat the Beast King, is definitely the best choice. With the current power of the abyss, it is impossible to control a 6-ring strongman with only the influence of consciousness pollution. For a 5-ring strongman, it can only stimulate him to go crazy and fall into a bloody fight. He also needs the other party to actively accept his power. So Linda is his last choice. If the Beast King invades other material planes with his strength, even if there is only one person, he will be invincible. When the abyss pollutes the whole world, its strength will naturally rise. I will obey your orders. Linda nodded. When the darkness melted away, all the pus given to Van Dyck by the abyss was absorbed by Linda's body. He began to feel a little uncomfortable, as if he had drunk a bucket of water on an empty stomach. When he moved, his stomach would always make a gulp-gulp shaking sound. Compared to these, Linda was more concerned about another point. If he guessed correctly, he seemed to have been selected as the only designated general of the abyss. That is to say, as long as he launched a new abyss war, the undead people would most likely be official, returned by conscripting men. Am I the 2.0 version of the boss? I don't have the strength, and have never thought of launching the abyss war of the 3 continents. Similarly, official does not have the strength to quickly increase the level limit of the undead. Both sides should still be in a state of harmonious coexistence. Is the update button in my hand now? No. Given the state of the abyss, it is only a matter of time before he escapes. Magdalena also said that there will be a disaster from outer space in the prophecy of 30 or 50 years. If it really takes until then for the abyss and the enemy from outer space to appear at the same time, the world will not be far from collapse. The game crashed, and the undead were offline and had no games to play. But he was going to die. How to kill the abyss as the designated 2.0 boss by the behind-the-scenes boss and the fake head of the novice village is a test of acting skills. A wave of beasts did not end with the collapse of the Colossus. The giant creatures had already used the powerful long-range attack power of the Colossus to kill into the gravel mountains. Now that they have successfully run in, it is not so easy to get the giants to leave. If Lind and his men spend a year or two together, they may be able to clear out the giants that rush through the gravel mountains and drive them out again. But Lind does not intend to do this thankless job. Standing on the city wall and looking out, you can see the wandering giant beasts. The extremely powerful supergiant beasts wander in the gravel mountains and are blocked and guided by the Red Kite Magic Artillery Group, making it impossible for them to break in a short time. However, some weak small beasts that are only 2 or 3 stories high have successfully sneaked in with the advantages of numbers and size, and settled outside the eternal summer nest. There are only a few thousand warriors who survived and have sufficient combat power. They survived this deadly battle, but they have no time to rest. They must organize a hunting team as soon as possible to hunt down the giant beasts outside the city wall. This is destined to be a long and hard battle. At least they held on in this defense battle. And next time, let's talk about it next time. In the eternal summer nest, the lives of the residents in the city seemed to have returned to normal, and there were many kinds of barbecues that had never been seen on the table. The end of the war also provided many precious materials, such as the ores and magic potions carried by the giant beasts, which brought an unprecedented trading boom to this wild city-state. But this boom only lasted for one day, and the locals soon understood what it meant to be a rich man. Tens of thousands of people fought to the death with the beasts. The materials accumulated from dozens of warehouses through hard mining were all bought by the mysterious Black Knight alone. When the locals looked at the piles of animal teeth around them, they were in a trance. The Black Knight's wealth was simply terrifying. Even Jean Zhao Quake, who tried to pay the Black Knight to help clear the beasts, suppressed his ridiculous idea. Even if he took out the wealth of the entire eternal summer nest, he couldn't afford it. The Black Knight didn't take money as money at all. They even had an absurd feeling that maybe the Black Knight could use the money to smash themselves to death. Ska, don't you want to stay? Maybe you are needed more here. The woman looked at her brother. After she saw the war, she realized that Jean Zhao Quake was not the strongest either. So she was happy and worried about her brother's choice to follow the strong man and leave. She was happy that he could see a wider sky by following a strong man. But she was worried about the dangers in the farther sky. The Black Knight said that the beast tide here will only break out in a small area at present. Rebuilding the defense line with the eternal summer nest as the center can hold it. Even if a mountain king level beast comes out of the gravel mountains, you can contact me. Scar patted his chest and grinned. I have a good relationship with Iron Nur, so it is not a problem to borrow dozens of magic cannons. Scar looked at the tall figure wearing a ghost cloak in the distance and said, I will leave here to find a real way to save this place. If we defend a place, only extinction awaits us, and suffering will only prolong the time of extinction. He followed Lin around and saw more powerful people. He also understood that the beast tide that put his hometown into a difficult battle was nothing to those top powerful people. The Beast King could easily solve the beast tide. But the problem they had to solve was why the Beast King stayed here forever to resist the beast tide. Choose to rely on yourself to become a strong man like the Beast King, or find a way to stop the beast tide. Scar turned his head and looked at his sister, looking past her to Jean Zhao quake behind her. And the faces. As his eyes swept over them, everyone's name jumped in his heart. The war left only fatigue on their faces, and those familiar faces that could no longer be seen. Perhaps they had already rushed to death, or were just seriously injured. Scar hoped it was the latter. The ground began to shake violently, and a hideous underground tunnel worm emerged from the ground. Its terrifying size, that could accommodate 3,000 to 5,000 people, caused a burst of exclamations as soon as it appeared. The Black Knight jumped up, and the others boarded the terrifying sandworm one after another. The worm moved very fast, and the ground shook continuously. It was impossible to stand steadily on the ground with both feet. Ska! The White Wolf swordsman's voice came from afar, and the other party was waving his hands. Here they come! Ska shouted loudly. He ran 2 steps quickly in the direction of the sandworm, and then suddenly stopped. The light of the setting sun was projected from the side of Scar's face, hanging on his head, stretching Scar's shadow very long. His eyes were bright, looking at the eternal summer nest and those who saw him off. Next time if the beast tide comes again, I will come back to save you. Remember to shout Lord Scar. Scar ran towards the sandworm. Wait for me, Lord Black Knight. I haven't gotten on the car yet. Ner. I told you a long time ago that we need to set up more teleportation points. Lord. It's very expensive. What else do we need? Let's rob some. Didn't we hear about a ruin? I heard there is a dragon. Lord. Why is it a dragon again? Nonsense. Why are you hiding if you don't want to rob us? That's right. The sound was swallowed by the strong wind and the rumbling vibration of the ground. Save us? Ska's sister laughed at her brother, who overestimated his own ability. But for some reason, the figure of the other party running in her sight suddenly became distorted, blurred, and a little unclear. He will succeed, right? Ska's sister turned her head and looked at the palm on her shoulder. Ska, will you do what you say? Goldclaw quick felt the touching eyes of Scar's sister and trembled. He just felt that the other person was crying, and he couldn't help but raise his hand to comfort her. He really didn't think of sacrificing himself. Yes, Goldclaw quick nodded. Ska has always been the guy who keeps his word. Have you forgotten? He saved us twice. After saying that, without waiting for Sister Scar to jump into his arms, he immediately withdrew his hand and turned around and said, but we can't just sit and wait for Scar to save us. We can't let Scar look down on us. He shouted at the top of his voice, prepare to clear out. The war is over. But it is not completely over.